Chapter 3262. The Pearl Contains Immortality. First Order Origin. This old man has finally broken through. The Demon Expert. No, perhaps it would be more appropriate to call him Ling Huju now. Because no matter if it was his appearance or aura, there was not the slightest difference between him and Ling Huju. As for the latter's true body, it had turned into a mist of blood and flesh. Moreover, it had been devoured and completely disappeared. While muttering to himself, Ling Huju's face was full of joy. He clenched his right fist, and a crackling sound burst out from his body. His strength had risen so much in such a short period of time, crossing a big realm. This feeling made him wild with joy. With this old man's current cultivation, even if that fake young master Ling Huju is riding a mecha, I can still kill him with one strike. Speaking of this, Ling Huju's eyes flashed as he glanced in the direction of the southern region in the cauldron space. Over there, Yi Xian, the purplish warbler, Duanmu Xiaocha, and the others had taken a big detour and still hadn't arrived. Unfortunately, this immortal poison was personally released by the human race, and we have to rely on them to spread the news. My demon clan can't bear this blame. In this case, we can only let these juniors live a little longer. As for these guys in the green light pillar, the young masters and heirs of the top gene liquid families of the dynasty? This is really interesting. If people knew that this terrifying immortal poison was not only personally released by the human race, but the source of its spread was also the heirs of the top gene liquid families of the immortal dynasty in the human race's science and technology camp, I'm afraid that the venerables of the Federation in the second universe would laugh their heads off. While laughing ferociously, Ling Huju didn't hesitate anymore. He loosened his right fist, and with a flip, a gray bead the size of a baby's fist was held in his palm. This pearl was strange. Its surface seemed to be ordinary and mediocre, like a gray pearl of inferior quality, but its interior was clearly not material. There was roiling mist surging endlessly within it, and from time to time numerous miniature strange ferocious beasts would appear. All of them weren't existences that could be seen in the current era, and they emitted a dense primordial aura. Furthermore, each of these miniature primordial beasts that appeared and disappeared as soon as they appeared, exuding a bone-chilling eerie aura. Some of them had dark green eyes, some of them were scarlet red, some of them were covered in blood, and some of them even had their internal organs slipping out of their stomachs. These were clearly fatal injuries, but they didn't affect the aura of these ancient beasts at all. No matter how unbearable and ferocious their bodies were, the auras of the countless ancient beasts that flashed and disappeared in the gray bead were definitely at their peak, or even stronger. All of these were compressed in the gray fist-sized bead, exuding an eerie and terrifying aura that chilled the soul. This immortal indestructible poison originated from the primordial era. It is said to be the final evil result of the legendary battle in the primordial era. It was condensed by a mysterious existence in the primordial era, who collected the filthy thoughts of countless powerful primordial creatures. Since ancient times, only two have been born, and both have fallen into the hands of my demon clan. Now, chaos is gradually rising in the myriad Luo Federation, and the Tenju Heavenly Palace has courted death and become the source of chaos in the entire Federation. Unfortunately, this fire is not burning hot enough. In order to make the races of the Second Universe Federation make up their minds to completely break off relations with the humans of the Third Universe and send out troops, my demon clan did not hesitate to take out one of this immortal indestructible bead to add fuel to the fire. Everything begins from now on. A small gray bead, but it contains the immortal indestructible poison from the primordial era. Humans of the Third Universe enjoy it well. Amidst the strange laughter, Ling Huju held the immortal indestructible bead in his right hand, turned around and rushed into the green light beam beside him. After entering, the scene inside was reflected in his sight immediately, making him smile immediately. His eyes flashed with joy, but the corners of his mouth outlined an arc, revealing a strong sense of disdain. Now that the crisis of the extermination of the human race has arrived, these so-called geniuses of the human race are still fighting among themselves. How ironic! Muttering in a voice that only he could hear, Ling Huju curled his lips in disdain, and the expression on his face instantly turned ferocious. In front of him, Tuoba Linfeng, Gong Yangji, Yuan Zhua, and Huang Fuzhua, who had rushed into the green light beam earlier than him, were fighting fiercely. The battle was chaotic. It was impossible to see who was on the side of who. Even Tuoba Linfeng and Gong Yangji were the same, facing the king of medicine's inheritance jade ruler that was hanging 1,000 feet above their heads. Everyone could no longer keep calm. They had already gone crazy from the battle, and their eyes were bloodshot. You dare to steal my Linghu clan's inheritance treasure. Today you all will die. Ha ha ha. This is the immortal indestructible poison that I have worked hard to find. Enjoy it. Linghu Ju raised his head and laughed, deliberately attracting the attention of Tuoba Linfeng and the others. Immediately afterward, Linghu Ju raised his hand and threw out the immortal indestructible bead. Boom! This bead was originally extremely fragile. It was usually stored in the Een Demon clan's ancestral land. Even if it was taken out this time, it was stored in a special storage magic weapon. Now it was blasted out, and Linghu Ju deliberately wrapped it with a layer of extremely unstable Een Demon energy, causing it to explode instantly after it was shot out. In the midst of the explosion, a gray mist spread out, so the green light that came into contact with the gray mist was as if it was corroded, quickly melting away. In the blink of an eye, the huge green light pillar that soared into the sky was cut off from the middle and collapsed with a loud bang. At the same time, the green jade ruler that was held up by the green light beam and suspended 1,000 feet above also fell abruptly. It was caught by Linghu Ju's figure in a flash. Immediately afterward, the green jade ruler disappeared with a flip of his hand. It was kept in his body. It really is the king of medicine's inheritance. Now that the treasure ruler is in my hand, I won't accompany you anymore. Enjoy this immortal indestructible poison slowly. With the green jade ruler in hand, Linghu Ju was overjoyed. He raised his head and laughed heartily as he suddenly retreated 300 meters. He narrowly avoided the strange gray fog that had spread out due to the sudden explosion of the small gray beads, and quickly left. Seeing this scene, Tuoba Linfeng, Gong Yangji, Yuanzhua, and Huang Fuzhua finally reacted. They stopped the infighting and wanted to chase after him. Unfortunately, it was too late. The gray mist that suddenly spread out had already enveloped the four of them. As they breathed, some strange particles seemed to have entered their bodies. The four of them only felt their souls shake, and they instantly lost their minds, falling down like dumplings in a pot. Chapter 3263. Colorful Flame Eruption. Heavens! What happened to Tuoba Linfeng and Gong Yangji? 4 black hole realm experts fell to the ground at the same time. It doesn't seem like he died. The aura in his body is very strange and chaotic, as if he's experiencing something strange and ominous. The key is, who did all this? Was the king of medicine's inheritance taken away? Look, that jade ruler is already gone. The green light pillar is also quickly disappearing. There is a strange gray fog spreading. It is this fog that is dissolving the green light pillar. What is this? Behind Yixian, Purplish Warbler, Duanmu, Xiaocha, Zhao Chanru, Ichiro, and the others followed closely behind. At this moment, when they saw this scene, they were all shocked and cried out in alarm. Yixian's heart was beating wildly. He didn't care that the Medicine King's inheritance had been taken away. After all, the so-called Medicine King of ancient times had only obtained the Shenong Cauldron and the Shenong Pestle. Perhaps even the King of Medicine had not unraveled the secrets of the Shenong Cauldron and the Shenong Pestle. When these two treasures were put together, they formed a set of treasures from the desolate era. It was not easy to understand them completely. Yixian's devouring system was currently refining the Shenong Cauldron. Once it was completed, this set of primordial treasures would fall into his hands. After studying it in the future, in addition to the other fortunes he had obtained, his future achievements would definitely surpass that of the primordial Medicine King. At this time, what really made him apprehensive was that gray fog that was rapidly spreading. He had seen clearly that Tuoba Linfeng, Gong Yangji, and the others had fallen into the dust from this gray fog. These were 4 black hole realm powerhouses, and one of them was even a level 9 black hole realm powerhouse. From the looks of it, they had been poisoned to death. What was the origin of that gray fog? How could it be so terrifying? Oh right, including the green pillar of light that shot into the sky when the Medicine King's jade ruler appeared. At this moment, under the spread of the strange gray fog, it had almost been melted away. This green pillar of light was the same as the light emitted by the ancient tablet of the Medicine King. It clearly originated from the bloodline of the Medicine King. This was the power of the ancient Medicine King, yet it was actually unable to block the strange gray mist and was dissolved upon contact? When he realized this, Yixian's heart shook violently again. He had vaguely guessed that this strange gray mist was definitely terrifying. It was most likely related to the Yin Devil by Ling Huju's side. Right now, both of them were nowhere to be seen. At the same time, the Medicine King's Jade Ruler had also disappeared. The truth was most likely that Ling Huju and that Yin Devil expert had released the strange fog to poison Tuoba Ba Linfeng and the others. They had seized the opportunity to seize the Medicine King's Jade Ruler. When Yixian explained his thoughts, Purplish Warbler, Duanmu Xiaocha, and Zhao Qianru were immediately filled with righteous indignation. Ling Huilong and the other three were even more furious. The 7 of them were all worried about the loss of the Medicine King's inheritance. Boom! It was also at this time that the furnace volcano in the central region of the cauldron space behind them suddenly erupted with power. It was suffused with 9 colors. It was dense and dazzling, illuminating the entire world. Even the faces of Yixian and the others were filled with 9 colors. Previously, when Yixian took out the Medicine King's ancient tablet in this cauldron space, the furnace volcano in the central region had also erupted with the 9-colored Shenong flame. At that time, Tuoba Ba Linfeng and the others had mistakenly believed that Yixian had obtained the Medicine King's inheritance. They had all rushed over, but in the end they had been miserably slapped in the face. But now, the 9-colored Shenong flame that had erupted from the furnace volcano in the central region was clearly more astonishing. It was unknown how many times stronger it was. Purplish Warbler Duanmu Xiaocha and the others turned their heads to look. They immediately opened their mouths wide and turned pale with shock. Yixian's heart skipped a beat. A bad feeling welled up in his heart. Just now, he had only ignited the 1-colored Shenong flame with the primordial spirit heart fire. Why did 9 flames suddenly erupt at the same time? Could it be that the refining failed and caused some kind of unforeseen event? Just as he was feeling anxious, the devouring system's prompt sounded in his mind, causing his heart to tremble violently. But at least, his heart that was about to jump to his throat quickly fell back down. Ding! Congratulations to the host for refining successfully. You have obtained the primordial treasure Shenong Cauldron and the Shenong Pestle to form the primordial set. When the 2 are combined into one, it will become the primordial treasure. Do you want to immediately collect it? Ding! System warning. Discovered the primordial poison Undying Poison. Do you want to immediately activate the Shenong Cauldron and try to condense and purify it? Undying Poison originated from the primordial era. It is the final evil result of the legendary battle of the primordial era. A mysterious existence in the primordial era collected the filthy thoughts of countless powerful primordial creatures. Once touched, life will be extinguished and one will become an undying zombie. It will devour all flesh and blood energy and live forever. Damn! It was actually a poison condensed from the filthy thoughts of countless primordial creatures that died in the legendary battle of the primordial era. It was said to be undying and indestructible. Once touched, life will be extinguished and one will become an undying zombie. It will devour all flesh and blood energy and live forever? Wouldn't that make it a cosmic zombie? Shocked and dazed, Yixian couldn't help but think of some zombie movies he had seen in his previous life on Earth. But the background of those movies needed to be changed. In the zombie movies on Earth, those terrifying zombies only wreaked havoc in the interior of a star. But now, if this undying poison was allowed to spread out, the entire heavenly battle star region would fall. At that time, countless cosmic zombies would spread throughout the stars, turning this place into a barren land. All the humans and cosmic beasts would be torn apart and devoured. This terrifying scene appeared in Yixian's mind, immediately making him shudder. It was too terrifying. This was a poison condensed from the filthy thoughts of those primordial creatures that died in the legendary battle of the primordial era. It was said to be undying and indestructible. Even the devouring system's prompt was only asking whether to activate the Shenong Cauldron and try to purify it. Try. This was clearly a sign that the devouring system was not confident in its ability to purify the poison. This situation had never happened before, making Yixian's hair stand on end. The situation was too critical, so he didn't hesitate and immediately gave the system a positive answer. asking it to activate the Shenong cauldron and immediately purify the poison. As for collecting the Shenong cauldron, Yixian didn't intend to do so now. Doing so would cause too much of a commotion and attract too much attention, which would be tantamount to inviting disaster. In any case, this star-like giant cauldron had been standing here for countless years. Previously it was ownerless, so no one had been able to take it away. Now that it had been refined by Yixian, it was even more impossible. He could wait until this matter was over, then quietly return and collect the giant cauldron without anyone noticing. As for now, the most important thing was to leave this place immediately. The world inside the cauldron was no longer safe, at least until the rapidly spreading undying and indestructible poison was successfully purified by the Shenong cauldron. Retreat immediately. This strange gray fog should be some kind of strange poison. In the blink of an eye, it killed 4 black hole realm masters. It's too terrifying. Chapter 3264. Poison overturning the nest. The purplish warbler, Duanmu Xiaocha, and the others already had a guess in their hearts. At this moment, when they heard Yixian's words, they were even more certain, and their expressions changed abruptly again. In addition, the power of the strange gray mist was too terrifying. In the blink of an eye, it had already melted all the green light pillars that soared into the sky. Moreover, it was spreading at an extremely fast speed. It would probably only take a few minutes for it to reach in front of him. The shocking scene of Tuoba Linfeng and the others falling into the void with chaotic aura was still in front of them. They didn't want to follow in their footsteps, so they didn't hesitate anymore. Anyway, the King of Medicine's inheritance Jade Ruler had been taken away, so there was nothing worth staying in this space of the cauldron. If it wasn't the poisonous fog, then it was the terrifying 9-colored flames. It was simply a dangerous place, so it was better to leave as soon as possible. Thinking like this, the purplish warbler Duanmu Xiaocha and Zhao Qianru immediately rushed up with Yixian. Ling Huilong and the other 4 experts from Clear River Pavilion also did the same. At this time, Yixian, who had just rushed a distance, suddenly thought of something. His figure suddenly stopped, and he waved his hand to summon the whole void shuttle, and ordered Ling Huilong and the others to enter. The 4 people were stunned, but they quickly reacted. They were unregistered residents, so they would be besieged if they went out. Now that they could enter Yixian's private worship to avoid disaster, they could just treat it as if they died in the cauldron. If Yixian rushed out alone, no one would believe this, and they would most likely be searched. But with the 3 women of the purplish warbler as companions, there was naturally no such problem. Thinking of this, Ling Huilong and the others no longer hesitated, and quickly turned into 4 streaks of light, plunging into the whole void shuttle. At the same time, the purplish warbler Duanmu Xiaocha and Zhao Qianru were stunned for a moment, but they also exclaimed in horror at the same time. They stared at Yixian's whole void shuttle as if they had seen a ghost, and their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Heavens, what did this young lady see? A dreamlike private warship? Let this young lady count the spirit arrays engraved on the hull, concealment arrays, defensive arrays, acceleration arrays, transmission arrays, and one that even this young lady can't understand. Heavens, this isn't a quasi-starry sky supreme treasure, right? This young lady doesn't care. You have to help us get one of these warships. Of this warship. This warship is so beautiful. Of this warship. But, is, and. If, was of their time, were, of. Every time he tried, he would be remembered. White sweat was dripping down his back. But even though they were messing around, the 3 beauties were not crazy girls who ignored the big picture. Seeing Yixian nod with a wry smile and put away the whole void shuttle into his body, they chuckled to themselves and immediately followed behind Yixian towards the mouth of the cauldron. Their figures disappeared into the 9-colored mist gushing out from the mouth of the cauldron, and in the blink of an eye, they left the space inside the cauldron at the same time, inside the farmer god cauldron. Although Yixian had already left and hadn't collected the Shenong cauldron, the cauldron had already been refined by him. Before he left, the devouring system had already activated some sort of miraculous power of the Shenong cauldron. At this moment, following Yixian's departure, the 9-colored divine Nong flames that gushed out from the central region's furnace volcano once again surged. At the same time, a cloud of 9-colored fog surged out and quickly spread out in all directions. Very soon, the 9-colored fog came into direct contact with the gray fog that was also rapidly spreading. The feeling was like oil coming into contact with water. Although the gray fog could instantly dissolve the green light pillar energy left behind by the Medicine King's lineage, it could do nothing to the 9-colored flame fog of the Shenong cauldron. As soon as they met, it was forced to retreat. It was no match for it. From the central domain furnace volcano, more and more 9-colored mist gushed out, gradually shrouding the entire space inside the cauldron. As a result, the gray mist that was originally rapidly spreading was directly restrained from spreading. It even began to be gradually suppressed, condensed inwards, and forced towards the central domain furnace volcano in the space inside the cauldron. If this situation could continue, the gray mist that was originally spreading out was very likely to turn back into a gray undying and imperishable bead under the power of the Shenong cauldron. Of course, some of the gray mist that had already spread out was separated in the process of being forced back. This kind of undying and imperishable bead was extremely sensitive to flesh and blood creatures. Most of the dispersed gray mist drilled into the bodies of Tuoba Linfeng, Gong Yangji, Yuan Zhua and Huang Fuzhua who had fallen into the dust. The direct result was that these 4 guys who were originally lying on the ground, not knowing whether they were dead or alive. However, at this moment, it was as if a basin of cold water had been poured over their heads. After a shiver, they strangely woke up. At the same time, some of the gray mist entered the body of Changyu Xiaotian. In the previous battle, most of the others were directly blown up by Yi Xian, or had their vitality and qi and blood drained by the Yin Demon Clan powerhouse. They could not even be considered as dried corpses and were not favored by the gray mist. However, Changyu Xiaotian was different. His neck was only broken by Linghu Yilong, and his corpse was still warm, which also attracted the gray mist. As a result, a shocking scene appeared. Everything was no different from what Yi Xian saw in the zombie atmosphere on Earth in his previous life. Changyu Xiaotian, who was clearly dead, actually stood up again shakily. His eyes were lifeless, but they revealed a kind of extremely ferocious red light of hunger. As for his cultivation base, it actually jumped from the previous Black Hole Realm Great Perfection to the Origin Realm 3rd level. This kind of undying and indestructible poison could actually be regarded as a kind of gene cultivation fluid, but its function was to improve through destruction. The poison changed the genes of Changyu Xiaotian's body. Now, he was no longer the Changyu Xiaotian of the past. He was a zombie, the first zombie in the universe. If released, it would definitely turn a nest of zombies upside down. In comparison, Tuoba Linfeng, Gong Yangji, Yuan Zhua, and Huang Fuzhua could only be regarded as carriers of the virus. Their eyes were somewhat red, but their self-consciousness still existed. The undying and indestructible poison was slowly changing the genes of their body. They may have felt this change, but it was not very strong and was ignored. This stage could be seen as the incubation period of the undying and indestructible poison. Once it broke out as a living infected person, their harm would be much more terrifying than the Changyu Xiaotian. It was just that right now they were not aware of this point at all. They did not even know that they and Changyu Xiaotian were completely the same kind of creature, and were no longer pure humans. Heavens, look at what that is! Changyu Xiaotian? This guy's eyes are straight, and there is no vitality at all. Instead, his strength has increased to the Origin Realm 3rd level. This what happened? It's definitely not a good thing. I have an ominous premonition. That guy can't be touched. Maybe he was poisoned by some kind of corpse poison and is no longer alive. It must be Ling Huju's gray bead. Run! Chapter 3265. Chapter 3265. Chapter 3265. Quickly recite the rebirth mantra inside the Medicine King's secret realm. Ever since Yi Xian, Tuoba Linfeng, and the others entered the Shenong cauldron that was as huge as a star, the patriarchs and leaders of the 16 top families, such as Yuan Changfeng, Duanmu Liangling, Tuoba Xiong, Gongyang Buhui, Long Yu Jinglong and Old Man Xinyuan, had been waiting outside the giant star cauldron. This included the 8 heirs of the 8 top-notch families who were accidentally squeezed out before they entered the giant star cauldron. Everyone was filled with righteous indignation. Previously, the leaders of the 8 top-notch families, including the Huyan clan, the Bailey clan, the Pengcheng Pharmaceutical Company, and the Life Gene Company, who were squeezed out of the giant star cauldron, had vented their anger on the patriarchs of the three top-notch families led by Tuoba. But later, everyone realized that this was not a trick of the giant star cauldron. It was impossible for them to collude with the Een Demon clan of the second universe. Once news of this spread out, the losses would outweigh the gains. Although the Een Demon clan was one of the many clans in the second universe, they did not even join the Myriad Net Federation. They were always wavering between the Federation and the Tianji clan. They had always been notorious for flattering both sides. Even if the giant star cauldron wanted to find a partner, it was impossible for them to take a fancy to such an unbearable clan. Therefore, although they were angry, the patriarchs and leaders of the 16 top-notch families who were waiting outside the giant star cauldron quickly calmed down after a brief moment of chaos. They did not start a rebellion. Instead, they stared at the mouth of the giant star cauldron with bloodshot eyes. That was the only way in and out. No matter where the 8 intruders came from, as long as they did not die in the space of the giant star cauldron, they would definitely rush out from the mouth of the cauldron. And at that time, the experts of the 16 top-notch families who were waiting outside would suddenly join forces to launch an attack. Originally, they thought that even if that scene appeared, it would most likely take 10 days to half a month or even longer. But to everyone's surprise, in less than a day after Yi Xian and his group of 20 people entered the giant star cauldron, which originally only had some 9-colored mist at the mouth of the giant star cauldron, unexpectedly, strange phenomena frequently appeared, alarming everyone. Their giant star cauldron. First, a burst of intense 9-colored flame rushed out of the giant star cauldron, and rushed out of the giant star cauldron. The giant star cauldron was cauldron of the giant star cauldron. The giant star cauldron was extremely star cauldron. They did not know what was, but was. Was it? Was cauldron cauldron the cauldron star cauldron. With this kind of uneasy feeling, the experts of the giant star cauldron waited for a while. Unexpectedly, the 9-colored flame that had just been extinguished not long ago flared up again. This time they were even more caught off guard. Before anyone could react, a figure had rushed out of the mouth of the giant star cauldron and entered their sight. This person was the expert of the Een Demon clan. Of course, his current appearance was that of a human, Ling Hu Ju. To all the experts of the giant star cauldron who were waiting outside, this human was also unfamiliar. They had never seen him before. Obviously, he was one of the 8 intruders. As a result, furious roars rang out from all directions. Almost as if it was a conditioned reflex, everyone attacked at the same time. Stop him! Damn this guy, he came out after a day. The King of Medicine's inheritance must have been obtained by him. This is intolerable. How dare he steal our Dao fruit? He must be killed. Boom, boom, boom. Amidst the roars, the dazzling brilliance of the magic treasure soared into the sky. Even the supreme existences of the Tao Insight realm, such as Tuoba Xiong and Gongyang Buhui, also attacked. Ling Hu Chang's figure was about to be drowned in the brilliance of various magic treasures. Old men, I am Ling Hu Ju. You can't keep me here. Instead, I have left you a big gift. Enjoy it later. Ha ha ha. Facing the overwhelming brilliance of the magic treasures, Ling Hu Ju was not afraid. He raised his head and laughed. He shook his hand and took out a black compass. As the brilliance flashed, a black light wrapped around his body. Before all the brilliance of the magic treasures fell, he had disappeared without a trace. Crack! A crisp cracking sound rang out. In the void, only a black palm-sized compass was left. However, after the teleportation was completed, it cracked open on its own. This was a one-time use teleportation compass. It could be said to be an extremely rare treasure. Today it was destroyed just like that. Boom! Boom! At this time, the dozens of magic treasures fell with a loud bang, tearing apart a piece of the void. The one-time transmission compass that had already cracked completely turned into flying ashes, leaving nothing behind. However, the main culprit had run away and taken away the Medicine King's inheritance. Moreover, before he left, he even made a big fuss and spoke rudely. This caused the leaders of the 16 great clans to be furious, and at the same time, they had a bad feeling. Since the other party had the means to escape, what he said before he left was definitely not nonsense. Listening to the meaning of his words, It seemed that something bad was going to happen. It was also at this time, when the dazzling light of the magic treasures was about to dissipate, from the mouth of the giant star cauldron, several figures rushed out again. The one in the lead was Yi Xian, followed by the purplish warbler, Duanmu Xiaocha and Zhao Qianru. After the four of them rushed out of the cauldron, they immediately turned their heads to look around, as if they were looking for something. Disappointment and depression quickly appeared on the faces of Xianyuan Ziying and the other two girls. However, Yi Xian was stunned for a moment. He looked at the gradually dimming brilliance of the magic treasure and roughly grinned. "Old friends, why are you so polite? Not to mention that the King of Medicine's inheritance was taken away by the fake. You even set off fireworks to welcome me when I came out. It made this young master feel embarrassed." Puff. Humph. The leaders of the various great families who were still in shock and anger were so angry that some of them almost vomited blood. Seeing that he was not dead, their faces immediately darkened and they snorted coldly. Old man Xianyuan, Duanmu Liangling, and the other old fellows were about to go forward and ask about the details, but from the mouth of the giant cauldron behind Yi Xian and the others, 5 figures rushed out, 4 in front and 1 behind. After being stunned for a moment, Yi Xian, purplish warbler, and the others thought of something and ran to the side as if they were avoiding ghosts. The few girls were crying out in alarm. "Everyone, get out of the way, these guys have poison on them. Anyone who touches them will die." "That's right, I just saw with my own eyes that they were drugged. But in the blink of an eye, they are alive and kicking again. They are definitely zombies. Is there an uncle who knows Buddhist secret arts here? Quickly recite the rebirth mantra and let them go in peace." Puff. What the F***CK? Duanmu Xiaocha, you are courting death. Chapter 3266. I don't want to gnaw on your head. Being so angry that he spat out a blood arrow on the spot was already frightening enough. However, the blood arrow that he spat out did not have a trace of blood color. It was as gray as swill and emitted a strange aura. This was absolutely horrifying. Seeing this, Yi Xian and the purplish warbler immediately retreated. Their faces were filled with disgust and fear. His blood had already turned gray, yet he was still alive and kicking. This was definitely not normal. He definitely could not be considered human. The leaders of the other top-notch families were all shocked as they cried out in shock. Even Tuoba Linfeng's group of 4 were frightened as they stood there with a blank expression on their faces. Their minds were in chaos. Until now, they still did not know what had happened to them. They had only spat out a mouthful of blood. How did it become swill? This doesn't make sense. Roar. Before anyone could react, a roar suddenly came from behind Tuoba Linfeng's group. It sounded like a human's voice, but the aura was not like that of a human's, but more like a beast's. Everyone reflexively turned their heads to look. Due to the sudden appearance of Tuoba Linfeng and the other 3, they had momentarily neglected what was behind them. Only now did they remember that there was another figure that had rushed out of the cauldron with Tuoba Linfeng and the other 3, and the one that was roaring at this moment was none other than this figure. This person was naturally Changyu Xiaotian. To be precise, it was no longer him but a cosmic zombie. Compared to Tuoba Linfeng's group of 4 who were merely carriers of the poison of undying and indestructible Changyu Xiaotian, who was originally already dead and was only revived because of the poison of undying and indestructible, his current appearance and state was truly tragic and frightening. First it was his head. Previously, Ling Huilong had crushed his cervical vertebrae before killing him. Right now, Changyu Xiaotian's cells and genes had changed because of the undying imperishable poison. Thus he seemed to have been reborn in a different way. Perhaps his broken cervical vertebrae had already regenerated and reconnected. But, even if it was good, it was still crooked. At this moment, his neck was completely crooked, and his head was placed horizontally on his left shoulder. The angle was suspicious. At the very least, a living person would not be able to do such a difficult action. Other than that, his eyes were completely gray. There was no white or black in his pupils. They were completely gray. Even the blood that flowed out from the corner of his mouth was the same. This scene made Taba Linfeng and the others tremble in fear. No matter how they looked at it, they felt that the current Changyu Xiaotian was a true portrayal of themselves in the near future. Moreover, the exposed skin of Changyu Xiaotian was also dripping with gray and black pus. He looked like a rotten corpse that had just crawled out from the ground. However, the aura in his body was extremely powerful. Although it was chaotic and mysterious, it was powerful. He was clearly an origin rank 6 existence. Compared to when he entered the enormous star cauldron, his cultivation had actually risen by an entire realm. Xiao Tian, my son, what happened to you? Seeing his son, whom he doted on so much, suddenly become like this, Chang Yu was so frightened that he almost lost his soul. He immediately rushed over with several experts of the Chang Yu family. His complexion was deathly pale as he asked with concern, "Wu?" In this state, Chang Yu Xiaotian clearly did not have the ability to speak. Perhaps he had even lost his self-awareness. The only thought or instinct he had was to devour flesh and blood. Under such circumstances, how could Chang Yu Xiaotian not react when 5 lively bodies exuding a fragrant smell of flesh and blood rushed in front of him without warning? An excited howl came out of his mouth. Then his body suddenly jumped. His seemingly rotten body was extremely agile. In the blink of an eye, he rushed in front of one of the experts of the Chang Yu family. The head on his crooked shoulder opened its wide mouth. This time it was a real grin, and half of the origin rank expert's head was bitten off. The latter was not completely dead. The upper half of his head was gone. His whole body was still twitching, but in the next moment he stopped breathing. This was because the remaining half of his head was bitten off by Chang Yu Xiaotian in the blink of an eye. Oh my God, what the hell? You scared this young master to death. Run! Monster! Tuoba Linfeng, Gong Yangji, and the other 2 were so scared that they almost wet their pants. An origin rank expert had his head bitten off just like that. The key was that it was bitten off in 2 bites. It was absolutely horrifying. The 4 of them screamed as they rushed in the direction of the experts of their respective families. They looked completely like stray dogs. Virus. This guy must have been poisoned by that fake young master Linghu. That kid colluded with the Yin Demon clan. This poison might be from the Yin Demon clan. So terrifying. I've never heard of it before. And the Medicine King's inheritance and the Green Jade ruler were also snatched by him. Oh my God, this young master is coughing up blood again. But why don't I feel anything? Why is it still gray? Oh, the 3 of them were screaming. Although they were in a panic, they at least understood what was going on. The surrounding experts who were stunned by this scene had a change of expression. They finally understood what was going on. The Medicine King's inheritance was a Green Jade ruler. Sure enough, it was snatched away by that fake young master Linghu who called himself Linghu Ju. What was even more infuriating was that not only did that guy snatch the Medicine King's inheritance, but he also poisoned Tuoba Linfeng and the others in the giant star cauldron. The former had clearly been poisoned as well, but the poison had not acted up yet. However, Long Yu Jingtian was in a much worse situation. His teeth were so sharp that they could bite off half of an Origin Realm expert's head with a single bite. This was clearly a sign that he had been deeply poisoned, and there was no way he could be cured. Linghu Ju, this old master, and you cannot exist under the same sky. I will tear you apart. Changyu Jinglong's hair and beard were fluttering, and his face was incomparably ferocious as he roared at the sky. Then, he saw that the origin rank expert had already been bitten by Changyu Jingtian. More than half of his body had already fallen into his stomach, and it was bulging so much that it could explode at any time. A trace of grief appeared on his face as he turned around and left. At the same time he roared, "What are you still standing there for? Restrain him and bring him back. If you can save him, save him. If you can't, then destroy him." Destroy him? When Tuoba Linfeng and the others heard this, they trembled all over again. They swallowed their saliva and looked at their fathers in panic. "Father, I'm not deeply poisoned. You can't destroy me, right?" Yes. I'm the same. Apart from the fact that my blood is a little gray, everything else is normal. Our Huangfu clan can even refine an 8th grade liquid, so it shouldn't be a problem for us to detoxify poisons, right? Oh, Father, I don't want to die. I don't want to eat other people's heads. Save me. As they spoke, all 4 of them began to cry. The dozens of experts from the various top clans looked at each other, and their hearts sank to the bottom of the valley. Chapter 3267. Everyone is alarmed. Changyu Xiaotian was quickly subdued. During this process, another powerhouse from the Changyu clan had half of his head bitten off by him. Although he didn't have the chance to eat the body afterwards, this powerhouse obviously couldn't live. Following his capture, everyone was alarmed and finally let out a sigh of relief. However, those powerhouses from the Changyu clan didn't discover that in the process of capturing Changyu Xiaotian, their bodies were more or less stained with some of Changyu Xiaotian's gray blood. Although it was quickly erased, this was an undying and indestructible poison from the desolate era. Could it really be erased? No one knew. However, Yixian's eyelids twitched as he watched. Seeing Changyu Xiaotian become this kind of monster that was neither human nor ghost with his own eyes, he finally realized the terror of the undying and indestructible poison with incomparable clarity. The Heaven War Star is going to be in chaos. No matter if it's Changyu Xiaotian or Tuoba Linfeng, their clans won't easily give up on treatment. During this process, that terrifying virus is very likely to spread unknowingly. With his heart beating wildly, Yixian lowered his voice and whispered to the purplish warbler, Duanmu Xiaocha and Zhao Qianru beside him. You guys better advise the powerhouses of the clan to leave this place of trouble. I will also leave soon. Don't worry, I will find some time to refine your treasured armors. Next time we meet, just give me the materials for the subsequent fusion. The three girls had long been scared to the point that their faces were deathly pale. They had previously seen Changyu Xiaotian being crushed to death with their own eyes. But now, not only did this guy become this undying and indestructible appearance, his cultivation and strength had also skyrocketed by nearly a large realm. Even opening his mouth could reach behind his ears, and with one bite half of his head would be gone. They simply didn't dare to think about all of this. The fear in their hearts was even greater than the others. At least they still didn't know that Changyu Xiaotian was actually already a dead person. This was the rhythm of dying, and then coming back to life to bring disaster to the world. Of course, they wouldn't reveal this point, otherwise it would arouse suspicion. In reality, after the three girls came back to their senses, in order to cover for Yixian, they immediately told him everything that had happened in the cauldron. Of course, the part about Ling Huilong and the others was omitted. Everything was pushed onto the head of that fake young master Ling Hu. No one suspected that the three girls were in cahoots with Yixian. After hearing their words and hearing the nonsense of Tuoba Linfeng's group, no one paid any more attention to Yixian. Their hatred was completely shifted to the so-called fake young master, Ling Hu Ju. At the same time, the 8 successors of the various major clans who had been forcibly squeezed out of the qualifications to enter had rejoiced expressions on their faces. They were completely different from before Tuoba Linfeng and the other 3 had appeared, a world of difference. There were a total of 20 people who entered the cauldron. Except for Ling Hu Ju, who obtained the Medicine King's Jade Ruler and left behind a lot of troubles, only 9 people came out alive. More than half of them were dead. Moreover, amongst these 9 people, there were only 4 that could be considered complete. They were Yixian, Xinyuanxing, and the other 4 girls. The other 5 seemed to have all been marked, and 1 seemed to be unable to be cured, while the other 4 were just waiting for the verdict. After secretly calculating the situation in their hearts, the 8 fellows rejoiced. Fortunately, they were squeezed out. Otherwise, even if they didn't die, they would probably be more or less the same as Tuoba Linfeng and the others. At this point, this so-called exploration of the ruins had completely ended. Moreover, it had ended in a crushing defeat. Except for Xianyuan, Duanmu, and a few other top major clans, all the other forces had suffered heavy losses. It was simply unacceptable. Especially after hearing that there was no other good fortune in the inner space of the giant cauldron star, and only endless strange flames and terrifying gray poisonous fog. None of the masters present wanted to go in and take a look. They didn't even want to stay in this Medicine King's secret realm. The masters of the 16 major clans quickly left. The Purplish Warbler, Duanmu Xiaocha and Zhao Qianru also did the same. In order not to arouse suspicion, they left with their respective clans' armies. Yixian also pretended to follow behind and returned to Heaven Battle Planet. As for the array outside the Medicine King's ruins, some masters were still left to guard it. After all, there were hundreds of thousands of people exploring the ruins. They didn't know that such a big change had occurred. It was estimated that they would only return to the entrance of the ruins when the 1-month deadline was up. Most of these people were from the 16 major clans, and there were only a few hundred rogue cultivators. Therefore, the array outside the ruins couldn't be removed. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to leave. This allowed Yixian to breathe a sigh of relief. Only one day had passed in a month. He had plenty of time to quietly sneak in, enter, and wait for an opportunity to secretly take away the farmer god cauldron. Although the 16 major clans did their best to suppress the news, there were still some rogue cultivators present at the time. Not to mention the Huyan clan, Bailey clan, Pengcheng Pharmaceutical Company, Life Gene Company, and other clans and forces of the 16 major clans were extremely worried that this terrifying gray poison would spread and wreak havoc. They wanted to secretly pressure the Chongyu clan and the other 4 major clans. Therefore, everything that happened in the Medicine King's secret realm was spread out on the same day. The entire Heaven Battle planet was in an uproar, and for a time everyone was in a state of panic. Under the investigation of some people, the situation in the encampment of the Chongyu clan, who had temporarily rented a courtyard on the Heaven Battle planet, was quickly revealed. It was said that on the night Chongyu Xiaotian was escorted back, perhaps because he had swallowed an Origin Realm Master and bitten off half of the heads of 2 other Chongyu clan masters, his cultivation base was previously at Origin Realm 7th stage. However, his cultivation base skyrocketed overnight, reaching the Great Circle of Origin Realm 9th stage, and he almost escaped. In the end, although he was painfully killed by Chongyu Jinglong and turned into a mist of flesh and blood, the spreading gray flesh and blood infected many Chongyu clan masters. Apart from Chongyu Jinglong and a few others, more than half of the 100 or so Chongyu clan masters who stayed in the courtyard coughed up blood that night. Their situation was exactly the same as Tuoba Linfeng's group of 4. Even if they coughed up blood, there was no trace of blood, and the gray color was extremely frightening. As for the Tuoba clan, Gongyang clan, as well as the Yuan clan and Huangfu clan, who had temporarily rented a courtyard on the Heaven Battle planet, the situation was tightly sealed. No one knew how it was progressing. They only knew that the 4 major clans were using all their resources and connections to save Tuoba Linfeng's group of 4. However, from the fact that the 4 major clans kept silent and didn't make any announcements regarding their progress, the treatment situation was obviously not optimistic. It was likely that they couldn't be saved. All kinds of rumors began to wreak havoc on the Heaven Battle planet. Some people had already begun to flee, feeling that this strange poison was about to spread. Even the imperial family of the Heaven Battle Empire was said to have taken action, preparing for a rainy day. Chapter 3268. Qingjiang Pavilion revisited. After leaving planet Heaven Battle, Yixian confirmed that there was no one around. Then he summoned his Dongshu shuttle behind a planet and stepped into it. Ling Huilong and the other 3 immediately came forward to welcome them. Their faces were filled with excitement. They had stayed in the Dongshu shuttle for 3 days. Although they had only wandered around the main control room on the top floor, they had long realized that this small private warship had more than one floor. In fact, just the space of the central control room on the top floor was already larger than a 3,000-meter-long stellar-level military battleship. It should be noted that the captain of the Dongshu shuttle was only 300 meters long. A small private battleship actually used the space-folding technology inside. Only some top-level existences, such as the Crown Prince of the Heavenly War Empire, could have such a foundation. Even the private battleship of the Master of the Clear River Pavilion was not so extravagant. From this point they deeply felt the depth of their young master's foundation, so they were naturally happy. It's a bit chaotic outside right now. You'll know when you go back. That guy Chongyu Xiaotian came back to life again and became a universe zombie. After chatting for a while, Yixian's expression turned serious. He continued, I still have something to do, but I will definitely go to the Clear River Pavilion in the next 2 or 3 days. You guys go back first and tell Mr. Hu about what happened in the space inside the cauldron. Advise him to make early preparations. I don't think we can stay in the Heaven Fighting Star any longer. Let's talk about the details when I get there. Ling Huilong and the others jumped in fright, especially the former. Chongyu Xiaotian was someone he had personally crushed to death. He couldn't be any more dead, yet he had actually come back to life. Moreover, he had even become some kind of cosmic zombie. Although they didn't understand what that was, it was enough to frighten them. It was definitely not a good thing. The 4 of them originally wanted to say something, but when they heard Yixian say that he would go to the Clear River Pavilion in a few days, they did not say anything more. They immediately exited the Dongshu shuttle and rushed to the Heaven Battle planet. Yixian, on the other hand, activated the concealment array and quickly rushed towards the void mystic realm where the Pill King's relics were located. The current Dongshu shuttle was already a quasi-starry sky supreme treasure. In addition, the experts left behind by the Tuoba family to maintain the operation of the array nodes outside the Medicine King's secret realm were not overly powerful existences. They were basically all in the origin realm. Therefore, Yixian did not feel any pressure at all. After arriving, he did not slow down and directly rushed into the secret realm. Even so, due to the activation of the concealment formation, the powerhouses of the Tuoba family who were pushing the node outside did not sense anything abnormal at all, and the Dongshu shuttle flashed and entered. After entering, Yixian directly urged the Dongshu shuttle to rush to the depths of the secret realm where the Shenong cauldron was located. To his surprise, the 9 colored flames that originally soared into the sky from the cauldron had already disappeared. Only some 9-colored mist was still dense. Yixian immediately ordered the Devouring system to collect the Shenong cauldron. The Devouring system directly connected with the internal field of the Shenong cauldron and completed everything in the blink of an eye. The Shenong cauldron, as huge as a star, turned into a stream of light and rushed over, sinking into Yixian's forehead and into his knowledge sea. The sudden disappearance of such a huge star could be seen from very far away. It was likely that the powerhouses who were staying in the secret realm would quickly rush over. In order to avoid being exposed or other unforeseen events, Yixian did not hesitate and immediately stepped into the Dongshu shuttle, turned around and quickly left. After a while, he rushed out of the Medicine King's secret realm along the original path. Still, he did not arouse the vigilance of the powerhouses guarding the node outside and disappeared into the distant void of the Milky Way. At this point, everything in the Medicine King's secret realm had finally come to an end. There was no longer any value in this place. No matter what kind of rumors spread, Yixian would not return. After everything was settled, Yixian stopped the Dongshu shuttle and remained in a concealed state, hiding behind a star. Then, he began to check the situation in his knowledge sea. The Shenong cauldron was indeed suspended in the central domain above his knowledge sea, where the Shenong pestle had been previously. After these 2 ancient treasures had been refined, the Shenong pestle had been inserted into the cauldron at an angle. At a glance, it was just a set of ordinary small pots, but in the shape of a 3-legged and 4-eared cauldron. If it weren't for the mysterious 9-colored mist surrounding the entire Shenong cauldron, and the dense and ancient aura, no one would have thought that this set of small cauldrons with a slightly different appearance was actually a primordial treasure. Yixian's divine sense quickly entered the Shenong cauldron to check. The furnace volcano in the central domain of the cauldron had stopped. Not only had the 9-colored flame unexpectedly disappeared, even the orange-red flame that had been ignited by Yixian's primordial spirit heart flame had disappeared. However, Yixian had a feeling that the flames were connected to his flesh and blood. He knew that as long as he willed it, the orange-red flame would immediately ignite again to refine the great medicine for him. Of course, a 1-colored flame had the effect of a 1-colored flame, and a 9-colored flame had the power of a 9-colored flame. This was different. Yixian could only ignite a 1-colored flame at the moment, so there was a limit to the great medicine that he could refine with the help of the Shenong cauldron. Miraculously, although the space inside the cauldron was filled with endless 9-colored flames, the undulating mountain range around the furnace volcano in the central domain was not affected at all. The mountains and rivers were still green. Not only were all the spiritual herbs and spiritual fruits unaffected, but some ferocious beasts and spiritual birds could also be seen from time to time. They were all ready-made materials that could be used to refine the great medicine. In the future, if Yixian obtained some spiritual roots and spiritual herbs from the outside world, he could also transplant them into the cauldron. It was indeed worthy of being a primordial treasure. In the same space, the central domain could be filled with flames, but the surrounding mountains and rivers were still green. This was the uniqueness of the Shenong cauldron's inner field. It was amazing. After his divine sense swept through the space inside the cauldron, Yixian was full of joy. If it wasn't for the fact that he still had almost no practical experience in refining medicine, he would have tried to use this primordial treasure Shenong cauldron to refine a cauldron of great medicine on the spot. Suddenly, a light flashed in his mind. Yixian remembered the undying and indestructible poison that had spread in the space inside the cauldron before, which was the strange gray fog. He didn't know whether it had been successfully condensed and purified by the 9-colored Shinong flame in the cauldron. In short, the space inside the cauldron was normal now, and he didn't see the existence of the strange gray fog. With suspicion, Yi Xian's divine sense extended into the depths of the furnace volcano in the central domain of the cauldron. Finally, he unexpectedly found a small gray bead the size of a baby's fist. The bead was extremely strange. Its surface was ordinary, like a gray pearl of inferior quality, but its interior was not solid. There was rolling fog surging endlessly, and sometimes miniature ferocious beasts would appear. All of them were not things that could be seen in the present era, and they were emitting a strong primordial aura. These miniature primordial beasts appeared and disappeared as soon as they appeared, and every single one of them gave off a creepy and eerie aura. Some of them had dark green eyes like demons, some were scarlet red like blood, some were bloody all over, and some even had their internal organs slipping out of their stomachs and hanging under their chests and abdomens. These were clearly fatal injuries, but it didn't affect the aura of these ferocious beasts at all. Chapter 3269. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation zombies appear frequently. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining the desolate poison. Undying and imperishable bead. Contains the boundless resentment of those who perished in the desolate era. It gathers the resentment of the heavens and earth and condenses it into a bead. Grade. Desolate era treasure. Quality. Perfect grade slightly flawed. As the system beep sounded in his mind, Yi Xian was stunned for a moment. Then he was overjoyed. The strange gray poison had been condensed into a bead? Moreover, this so-called undying and imperishable pearl was actually in existence at the level of a primordial treasure. This was definitely the king of 10,000 poisons, condensed from the boundless resentment and filth of those who had fallen in an incomparable battle during the primordial era. This was definitely a supreme treasure for scheming. However, the poison of this bead was too terrifying. Once the poison spread, it would spread in a large area. If it was not suppressed in time after it spread, it was likely that an entire universe would fall. It was too dangerous, so Yi Xian did not dare to use it. This kind of thing would be retribution when one reached the later stages of cultivation. However, with this pearl in hand, it was also a type of deterrence. According to his estimations, the Heaven Battle Planet was most likely going to face a great calamity this time. Once this matter spread, the undying and indestructible poison would also become famous throughout the 3 universes. Yi Xian had an undying and imperishable bead in hand. Although he had no intention of using it, it might come in handy in the future. It was good to scare people. Thinking of this, he immediately released a strand of divine sense towards the central region furnace volcano. After wrapping around the small gray bead, he carefully pulled it in front of him. This pearl was extremely strange. From the outside, it merely looked like a gray and ordinary pearl, and it didn't emit any unusual aura. However, if one looked at it carefully with concentration, one would notice that there were countless primordial ferocious beasts floating up and down within it, and they were all things condensed from resentment. Among all the desolate era ferocious beasts, some had dark green eyes, some were scarlet red like blood, some had rotting flesh, and some even had their internal organs slipping out of their stomachs, hanging on their chests and abdomens. These were clearly injuries waiting for death. However, it did not affect their auras at all. Even though they were separated by the material membrane on the gray bead's outer layer, Yi Xian could feel waves of extremely powerful primordial resentment rushing at him as the ferocious beasts continued to live and die. Yi Xian did not dare to take a closer look. This thing was probably very fragile. If it exploded or cracked in his hands, then he would be in big trouble. He didn't even dare to store it in his sea of consciousness or the undying world in his body. He decided to leave it in the farmer god cauldron. This way, even if it really cracked open with the suppression of the farmer god cauldron, it wouldn't leak out and harm him. With this thought, Yi Xian's primordial spirit immediately retreated and opened his eyes. After that, he rode the Dongshu shuttle and hurried back to the Heaven Battle Planet. When he was not far from the planet, he stepped out of the battleship and put it into his body. Then, he concealed himself and stealthily approached the Heaven Battle Planet. He entered the Heaven Battle Planet's star defense array and headed straight for the imperial capital. At the same time, in the ancestral land of the Tuoba family, one of the three great clans of the Heaven Battle Planet. It had been a few days since they returned from the Medicine King's mysterious domain. During these few days, Tuoba Xiong had not slept a wink. Of course, if the family head was so anxious, there was no need to mention the other experts in the Tuoba family. Those who were busy, and those who were not were anxious. The entire ancestral land of the Tuoba family was shrouded in a layer of dark clouds. The reason why Tuoba Xiong was worried was because of the undying poison in Tuoba Linfeng's body. Tuoba Xiong was originally quite confident in the matter of removing the poison. After all the top clans that researched the genofluid could be considered to be involved in the field of medicine. Moreover, it was not the medical skills of ordinary people, but the medical skills of cultivators. Within any of the top clans that researched the genofluid, there would be one or two medical divine masters in charge. The Tuoba family had previously obtained an incomplete ancient book from the Medicine King's ruins, which allowed some important members of the family to make a major breakthrough. Not only did they come up with a level 10 genofluid, but they also made great progress in the field of medicine. But even so, even the clan elder with the deepest attainments in the field of traditional Chinese medicine had already stepped forward and deduced for 2 whole days. He had tried all kinds of methods, but he still couldn't get rid of the strange undying poison in Tuoba Linfeng's body. He could not even stabilize his condition. The only effect was to delay the time of the poison. However, this delay was extremely limited. After all, a few days had passed. No matter how slow the speed of the poison was, there was still a limit. Tuoba Linfeng, who was still alive when he returned, was now bedridden. His mind was sometimes clear and sometimes crazy. He had long been tied up and placed under a restriction to prevent him from breaking free. The situation of the other 3 clans was basically the same. Gongyangji, Yuanzhua, and Huangfuzhua were also bedridden. The situation was getting more and more critical. However, the medical divine masters of the 4 clans gathered together and studied for an entire day, but there was still no progress. This morning, the other 10 or so top-notch families invited the divine doctors from their clans to come to help. Together with the imperial doctors of the Heavenly War Empire, everyone gathered together for a meeting. In the end, there was no progress. At this time, Yi Xian had already collected the Shenong cauldron from the Medicine King's secret territory and quietly returned to the Heavenly War Empire's capital. As soon as he entered the Empire's capital, Yi Xian met a group of panicked citizens of the Empire's capital. Among them, there were also some figures of the Empire's garrison. Obviously, some kind of turmoil had occurred, and it was not small. A light flashed through his mind. Yi Xian quickly guessed something, and his heart suddenly sank. If there was no accident, it should be Tuoba Linfeng's group or Changyu Xiaotian's side. The undying poison had begun to spread, which caused the turmoil. After asking, it was indeed so. Just a moment ago, from a mansion in the western district of the Empire's outer city, 2 terrifying starry sky powerhouses suddenly rushed out. Their mouths were dripping with gray poisonous blood, and their eyes were gray. They rushed to the street and opened their mouths, biting off half of the heads of several Empire citizens. Their wide mouths were exactly the same as Changyu Xiaotian's. When they opened their mouths, they were extremely terrifying. The entire street was instantly in chaos. The Empire's garrison immediately rushed over. And after hearing the news, Changyu Jinglong and the other powerhouses of the Changyu clan rushed out of the mansion. In a short period of time, they blasted the 2 poison people into pieces. However, at the same time these 2 guys were blasted apart, a gray mist of flesh and blood also spread. Some of the Empire's garrison troops were infected and were immediately isolated for observation. Similarly affected were some of the Empire's citizens. They were not starry sky powerhouses, and their resistance to this undying poison was almost negligible. As soon as they were infected, they immediately fell ill. The battle had just ended, and the entire street once again had hundreds of crazy zombies. Each one of them had extraordinary strength, and they gnawed at anyone they saw. Chapter 3270. Clear as a candle following the unexpected appearance of the Changyu incident, the undying and imperishable poison finally began to break out. Although it was still in a small area, it was gradually becoming impossible to contain. All the Starry Sky Masters and citizens of the Empire who came into contact with the poison were infected. Some were temporarily contained, while others were killed on the spot. At first, the Heavenly War Empire was caught off guard, but soon they came up with countermeasures. They didn't just simply kill those poison people, they used technological weapons, and a large number of small patrol ships began to patrol around the imperial capital. Once the poison was discovered, they were immediately sealed off and killed by the high temperature of the ship's energy cannons. Although this caused some damage to the capital's buildings, in this critical period, they couldn't care too much. Under the all-out response, the first wave of the undying indestructible strange poisons outbreak was finally stopped, and the situation was under control. In less than half a day, the courtyard temporarily rented by Changyu's family had already turned into a land of death, and no one dared to approach. Only the Heavenly War Empire's official forces were there to deal with the aftermath, plowing the ground with high-temperature energy beams, hoping to use this method to incinerate the remaining poison. The hundreds of imperial citizens on the street were almost completely wiped out. Of the 100 or so masters of the Changyu family, only the head of the family, Changyu Jinglong, and an elder survived. Even the two of them were only allowed to leave after being carefully inspected by the Empire's experts to confirm that they didn't carry the poison. After that, Changyu Jinglong left the Heavenly War Empire in dejection. Although this matter had temporarily come to an end, as the entire street on the west side of the capital fell, and was sealed off and turned into a land of death, panic spread. The entire Heavenly War Empire was in complete chaos. Countless citizens and Starry Sky Masters fled. The situation was already out of control. Although Yi Xian wanted to help, he searched the internal database of the Devouring system, but in the end, he couldn't find any countermeasures. This kind of undying and imperishable poison, even the Devouring system didn't have a way to completely neutralize it. Previously, even the Shinong cauldron could only condense the poison into pearls, but couldn't purify it. From this alone, one could see the problem. Without a doubt, the Heaven Battle planet was finished. The first wave of outbreaks that had occurred on the western side of the imperial capital was only the beginning. Some of the viruses had definitely spread, but they had not yet appeared because they were still in hibernation. Not long after, the second wave of explosions would completely crumble the wills of all the imperial citizens and experts on the Heaven Battle planet. This was something that Yi Xian could already see, and it wouldn't be too far away. With a sigh, he stepped into the Clear River Pavilion. It was not a good place to stay. After keeping the appointment, he planned to leave. After meeting him, Hu Qing had a strange expression on his face. He sized up Yi Xian from head to toe for a long time until Yi Xian felt a little uncomfortable. Then, he sighed faintly and shook his head with a bitter smile. If the old patriarch could really have a descendant like you, he would definitely be smiling in the underworld. What a pity. Ling Huju colluded with the Yin Devil clan. He's no longer fit to be a disciple of Ling Hu clan? Ah? Yi Xian was startled and his expression immediately changed. Mr. Hu had not released his cultivation aura, but when Yi Xian faced him, the invisible pressure he felt was vaguely similar to when he faced the wretched mosquito butcher. Even if this person was not a universe realm expert of the 15th major realm, he was at least a Genesis realm expert of the 14th major realm. Yi Xian did not expect that Hu Qing had already seen through the fact that he was impersonating Ling Hu Young Master, and even knew that Ling Hu Ju was the real Ling Hu Young Master. This made Yi Xian feel a little uneasy. Little friend, there is no need to panic. If you want to pursue this matter, this Hu would have already acted. Why would I need to talk to you about this? Waving his hand, Hu Qing had Yi Xian sit down. He personally poured 2 cups of tea and gestured for him to drink. Then he continued. This Hu is not a member of the Ling Hu bloodline. Back then, I received great kindness from the old patriarch, so I stayed on the Heaven Battle planet to protect the remnants of the Ling Hu bloodline. I originally hoped that the young master who escaped back then would one day return with glory, but who would have thought that this would be the result? The family is unfortunate. At this point, Hu Qing sighed again. Speaking of which, this Hu has to thank little friend. If you hadn't impersonated Ling Hu Young Master, Ling Hu Ju would have suddenly colluded with the Yin Demon clan. Ling Hu Ju's name would have become infamous throughout the 3 great cosmoses. At least now, everyone would think that you are the real one and protect the old patriarch's reputation. Hu Qing thanks you. After saying this, he actually stood up and cupped his hands towards Yi Xian, bowing deeply. Yi Xian's face was burning hot. He could not believe that he would encounter such a situation when he was impersonating Ling Huju. The other party clearly saw through him like a candle, and even thanked him so sincerely after knowing the truth. No matter how thick-skinned he was, he could not take it anymore and quickly supported him. He was so embarrassed that he did not know what to say. It's a pity that the jade ruler of the King of Medicine's inheritance was snatched away by Ling Huju in the end. If it could fall into Little Friend's hands, with Little Friend's great talent, you would definitely be able to bring it to greater heights. Hu Qing seemed to have recalled the past and reminisced. Back then, the old patriarch entrusted this Hu with two tasks. The first was that if his descendant was worth nurturing, I would wholeheartedly assist him and help him become a talent. However, there is no hope for this. The second was related to the King of Medicine's inheritance. That secret realm was first discovered by the old patriarch of Ling Huju, and the rise of the Linghu clan was also related to it. They had once obtained half a volume of the King of Medicine's inheritance at the periphery of the secret realm. The old patriarch was amazed by the King of Medicine's talent, and was worried that the inheritance would fall into the hands of evil people. He instructed me to protect it and find a reliable genius to help him seize it in the future. I never thought that this Hu would break my promise. After experiencing this Hu has already seen through a lot of things. I don't want to stay in the mortal world anymore. I want to find an ancient place to meditate and comprehend the great Tao. Today I have a request. I hope Little Friend won't refuse it. Speaking of which, this matter is considered reckless, but for Little Friend it is more or less helpful. Otherwise this Hu wouldn't mention it. I hope Little Friend can accept the descendants of Ling Huju in the Clear River Pavilion. Their cultivation is extraordinary. With Little Friend's talent, you will definitely achieve great things. With them by your side, it will save you a lot of effort. However, I hope Little Friend doesn't reveal your identity, and leave them with the spiritual support. It's also good. This? Yixian was shocked. He was obviously a fake, but Mr. Hu in front of him asked him to continue pretending. Although he was painstakingly doing so, he really couldn't do it. After pondering for a while, Yixian suddenly had an idea. He cupped his hands and said, "If Mr. wants to find a place to cultivate, I have a place to go. Moreover, I can also take the descendants of Clear River Pavilion with me. It is a very vast world where they can display their strength. If they succeed in the future, they will definitely be extraordinary. Besides, we really can't stay on Heaven Battle Planet. Soon a great disaster will descend, so it is better to leave early." "Oh, there is such a place." Hu Qing was startled and repeatedly asked, "Where is it?" "Death Star Field, Triumph City." Ah. Although Hu Qing had been staying on Heaven Battle Planet, he was aware of all the major events that happened in the outside world. When he heard Yixian mention the Death Star Field, he was stunned for a moment before suddenly understanding and laughing. Ha ha ha. Chapter 3271. Chapter 3271 Chapter 327 Wow. So beautiful. Hu Qing left. They took away all the employees and resources of the entire Clear River Pavilion, including Steward Hu Ichiro and the others. They were actually all descendants of Linghu, and ever since Yixian appeared, they had treated him as young Master Linghu. When they heard that young Master Linghu and Prince Xian were actually close friends, they happily left. Normally, the entire Clear River Pavilion would be deserted, and it would attract a lot of secret attention, scrutinizing and investigating this matter. However, the chaos in Heaven War Planet was gradually becoming apparent. Countless starry sky masters and people of the Empire were fleeing, and all the people of Clear River Pavilion were leaving, so no one would think much of it. This matter was actually killing two birds with one stone for Yixian. On the one hand, he used the name of young Master Linghu, which made him feel a little uncomfortable, but now it was resolved. On the other hand, Hu Qing took his team to Triumph City, which was also good for the construction and future development of Triumph City. Although there were all kinds of talents on the other side, the experts had the wretched mosquito butcher in charge, the army had the trusted troops of Naples, and in terms of construction and development, there were the 1,000 or so so-called victorious return think tanks that Yixian called pests. Only in the field of business there were no top talents who could make him feel relieved. It should be known that the Death Star Field, where Triumph City was located, was not only vast, but there were also countless stars. Although they were all dead stars, they were still very rich in mineral resources. However, compared to the harsh environment of the Death Star field for other forces, mining these minerals required them to live in that place for a long time. The disadvantages outweighed the advantages, so no one cared. However, since the victorious Return Legion was stationed there, they would definitely excavate these ores daily, refining them into ores and trading them with the outside world. This was a long-term and sustainable source of resources that could be exchanged for a large number of cultivation resources that the Legion's experts needed, as well as various other reserves for the Legion's expansion. So it was extremely important. With Hu Qing in charge of this in Triumph City, Yi Xian was completely relieved. After solving this matter, he originally wanted to leave immediately. Heaven War Planet had become a place of trouble, and he didn't want to stay here and be infected by the poison of immortality. Otherwise, he was afraid that he would have to throw himself into the Shinnon cauldron to be refined to get rid of the poison in his body. That was simply torture. Just the thought of it was terrifying. Just as Yi Xian was about to leave, Purplish Warbler, Duanmu Xiaocha and Zhao Qianru came together and blocked the door. When Yi Xian walked out of the courtyard, the three girls were grinning at him eagerly. What is it this time? Yi Xian immediately became vigilant. It was definitely not a good thing for these three girls to be together. Long Xian, what do you mean? Do you dislike the three of us so much? Fortunately, one of them is your lover. I've never seen you treat your future wife like this. Yes or no, Xing, what kind of eyes did you have in the past? She actually took a fancy to him. Ayaya, you two damned girls. You were clearly protesting against him, so why are you dragging me into this? Seeing that Yi Xian was guarding against them like they were thieves, the three girls couldn't take it anymore and started protesting. Their small lips were pouting so hard that 2 kilograms of meat could be hung from them. With three delicate beauties waiting outside at the same time, who wouldn't be overjoyed? Only this guy's face immediately darkened. No one else could do this. This was especially true for Purplish Warbler, who was innocently implicated. At this moment her mood was completely messed up. She was so embarrassed that her face turned red and she almost turned around and ran away. Yi Xian was embarrassed and stepped aside to invite the three ladies in. After asking, he found out that they had already thought about what kind of ores they would use for the second fusion refinement and had already collected all of them. Thus, before leaving Heaven War Planet, they had hurriedly sent them over to Yi Xian. With regards to the future armor, the three girls had always been thinking about it. This was too normal. Almost all women were like this. Once they thought about how beautiful clothes were about to be in their hands, they would definitely lose their appetite for food and drink. They would be so excited that their eyes would be filled with adrenaline. At this time, Heaven War Planet was on the verge of erupting with an undying and indestructible poison, yet they acted as if nothing had happened and were still thinking about the armor. Yi Xian was thoroughly convinced. Very quickly, the three girls each took out a small spatial box. Inside each box was a rare mineral. Even Yi Xian felt a little envious when he saw them. As expected of the young misses of the top families of the dynasty. If such a thing was thrown out, it would definitely attract a lot of people, yet they were able to easily get their hands on it. The three spatial boxes were quickly put away by Yi Xian and sent into his undying world. Just as he was about to say something, Duanmu Xiaocha beside him excitedly shouted, "Idol, quickly take out our armor for us to admire. Although this is only the first fusion refinement, the armor we chose last time was all very beautiful. After fusing with the armor that was originally lacking in this aspect, it will definitely be very beautiful, right?" Ah! Yi Xian was dumbfounded. Only now did he understand. The three girls had come to deliver the materials, but their main purpose was to see the armor that they had fused with. After all, it had been a few days since they returned from the Medicine King's hidden realm. Yi Xian had previously said that the first fusion refinement did not require much time, but the later refinements would require more time. He had nothing to do these past few days, so the girls probably thought that he was refining the armor behind closed doors. At this time, he was afraid that he would not be able to say that he did not have time to refine the armor. Since they were so concerned about it, it would not be an exaggeration to say that they were thinking about it day and night. If they found out that he did not take it seriously at all, he was afraid that he would be in trouble. If the three of them were to follow Yi Xian closely and supervise his progress day and night, then it would really be over. Thinking of this, Yi Xian shuddered. Then, under the suspicious gazes of the three girls, He turned around and walked towards the inner room. You guys wait, there's still a bit of finishing up that hasn't been done yet. Finish it immediately and just wait outside. As soon as he finished speaking, he had already entered the inner room. Yixian raised his hand to wipe the cold sweat off his forehead. He immediately took out the 3 armor artifacts and the magnificent armor artifact for fusion. He threw all of them to the Devouring system. At the same time, he took out some star core origin from the Undying World and threw it to the Devouring system as well. He was preparing to fuse the 3 armor artifacts together. After all, it was only the first time, so it would not take much time. After all, his cultivation had increased by a lot, and it was no longer the same as before. After finishing all the preparations, Yixian immediately ordered the system to fuse the armor artifacts immediately. Then, he sat cross-legged in the inner room and waited. According to his estimation, the first fusion of the 3 pieces of armor at the same time would take about 4 hours to complete. Fortunately, the 3 girls from the Purplish Warbler did not disturb him during this process. They probably knew that refining was a meticulous job and could not be distracted. Otherwise, if the armor artifacts were to be destroyed, they would be the ones crying. For hours later, the system prompt sounded in his mind. Yixian felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. He put away the 3 armors, stood up, and left the inner room. With a wave of his hand, the 3 dazzling armors lined up and floated in the air in front of him. Wow, so beautiful. I love you to death. Chapter 3272. Imperial Castle collapses. The 3 girls originally had several sets of armor. The sturdiest and most practical one was clumsy and ugly, while the most dazzling one was flashy but impractical, not very useful in actual combat. Although there were a few sets of armor that balanced both aspects because they had to balance these 2 aspects at the same time, they ended up being mediocre. They were beautiful but not stunning, and they were sturdy but just barely passable. For the female Starry Sky Masters who loved beauty, having a sturdy, practical, and dazzling set of armor was almost an eternal pain in their hearts. Very few people got what they wanted. But now, the 3 sets of female armor in front of them clearly belonged to this kind of dream equipment. Stars burst out of the eyes of the 3 girls. In front of them, they could vaguely see the shadow of the 2 sets of armor they had provided before. The shortcomings were discarded, but the advantages were retained and perfectly blended together. This was only the first fusion, but the 3 girls were already amazed. Although there was no change in terms of grade, and the main armor they had provided before was of the Starry Sky Legend grade, and it was still the same now, but the quality, especially the appearance, had been completely reborn. It was completely different from before. Heavens, this is too amazing. I'm not dreaming, am I? Big bad guy, the previous matter is written off. This young lady is not angry anymore. But you can't be careless with the following fusion. An idol is an idol, just based on this magical refining technique. Even if he is not a prince, he is destined to be famous in the world. I'm afraid that even those master refiners are not as good as him. Stars burst out of their eyes as the 3 girls admired their new sets of armor admiringly. They were not stingy with their praise, almost praising Yixian to the heavens. Then they each took out their own sets of armor and put them on. Their whole temperament was completely different, and Yixian's eyes couldn't help but light up. After tossing and turning for a long time, the 3 girls reluctantly took it off and handed it back to Yixian with a red face. Then they pestered him to imagine the shape and changes of the armor after the second fusion. After grinding for a full meal, they left, turning their heads 3 times. It was on this night that an unforeseen event occurred again. The second outbreak of the undying indestructible poison appeared. Roar! Screech! Screech! At midnight, a bone-chilling scream of a corpse suddenly sounded. It came from the direction of the courtyard temporarily rented by the 3 great families of Heaven Battle Planet, the Tuoba family, the Gongyang family, as well as the Yuan family and the Huangfu family. Immediately after, hundreds of cosmic zombies rushed out from the 4 great clans and scattered, running in different directions of the Heaven Battle Empire's capital. These universe zombies were originally the Starry Sky experts of the 4 great families. Perhaps because they had been in contact with Tuoba Linfeng, Gongyangji, Yuanzhua, and Huangfuzhua during this period of time, they were unknowingly infected. What was even stranger was that they seemed to have made an agreement in advance. Tonight, they all lost their vitality and self-awareness at the same time, turning into terrifying universe zombies. No one would believe that there was nothing fishy about this, but where the problem was, no one knew. The Heaven Battle Empire reacted immediately. A large number of the imperial capital's garrison troops were dispatched. In the blink of an eye, there were countless shuttles flying back and forth in the sky above the imperial capital, beginning to search and kill. As the imperial capital of one of the three great empires, the Heaven Battle City had always had a flight ban, but after the first outbreak of the undying indestructible poison, no one paid attention to this flight ban. At this time, the imperial capital's garrison troops, in addition to the small shuttles, even the 1,000-meter-long planetary-level battleships had been dispatched. From time to time, they would blast out energy beams to kill the bloody universe zombies wreaking havoc in the imperial capital. In the chaotic situation, some of the starry sky experts in the imperial capital no longer had any scruples. They all summoned their own small private battleships and fled this demonic land in panic. As for the inner city of the Heaven Battle Empire, the energy shield had already been activated. It could effectively prevent the virus from spreading in. At the same time, there was a large number of Imperial Capital's garrison troops guarding the main roads. Any universe zombies that didn't know how to open their eyes would be killed from afar. Tonight, the entire Heaven Battle Empire was in complete chaos. The Heaven Battle Empire was about to collapse. More than 100 universe zombies appeared at the same time, and they were all starry sky experts. Their original cultivation was not weak, but after the poison turned them into universe zombies, the cells in their bodies mutated. In an instant, their strength skyrocketed, making it extremely difficult to kill them. Even if they were successfully hunted down in the process, more people in the imperial capital were infected. Under such a chaotic situation, there was no way to guard against the splashing blood of the universe zombies. As a result, the more the universe zombies were killed, the more the universe zombies increased. In the end, it gradually became a prairie fire. Before dawn, the zombies in the outer city of the imperial capital had already formed into hordes. Although most of them were ordinary citizens of the imperial capital and not starry sky powerhouses, even if they were ordinary citizens, after becoming zombies in the universe because of the mutation, the power they possess was already extremely shocking. Not to mention, there were also a small number of starry sky experts mixed in. They had already become the leaders of the universe zombies. They were often hidden in the zombie horde and were very difficult to kill. When the sky was about to brighten, the number of zombies in the outer city of the imperial capital had reached hundreds of thousands. At this point, the officials of the Heaven Battle Empire finally realized that the situation was hopeless, and the situation could not be reversed. The imperial family in the inner city, and the upper echelons of the empire who were protected by the energy shield all evacuated. Not only did they evacuate from the Heaven Battle Empire, but they also evacuated from the Battle Star. Because some universe zombies had already broken through the city, the other cities on the vast continent of this star would soon be affected, and there would no longer be a paradise left. The upper echelons of the empire had already begun to evacuate, so the starry sky experts and the people of the empire naturally could not have any more hope. Those who had the ability to leave all set off from the first universe, boarding the warships and rising into the sky. Not only did the other aristocratic families and forces who came for this Medicine King peak hurriedly leave, even the local top aristocratic families of the Heaven Battle Empire, such as the Tuoba and Gongyang families, did the same. Including the three girls Purplish Warbler, Duanmu Xiaocha and Zhao Qianru, the three girls finally left. Yixian stood in the small courtyard of the hostel, looking up at the horizon. Seeing the warships of the aristocratic families rise into the sky, the stone in his heart finally fell to the ground. Yixian originally wanted to leave long ago, but he delayed until now because he changed his mind at the last minute. For the time being, he did not plan to leave the Heaven Battle Star. As for the reason, even Yixian felt that it was somewhat incomprehensible when he thought about it now. The reason he stayed was because of these universe zombies, or more accurately, it was because of the 4 Zombie Kings. Chapter 3273. Zombie Kings Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. At the beginning of the second outbreak of the undying indestructible poison in the Heaven War planet, the system suddenly notified Yixian that it had discovered 4 zombie kings that had successfully mutated, and asked Yixian if he should immediately hunt them down. Suddenly hearing the title of Zombie Kings, Yi Xian was caught unprepared. This was because the system's notification was very clear and pointed out the names of the 4 zombie kings that had successfully mutated. They were Tuoba Linfeng, Gongyangji, Yuanzhua, and Huangfuzhua. The reason why the system asked Yi Xian if it should be hunted down immediately was because this kind of zombie king that had successfully completed a living mutation had condensed a corpse core within its body. It was a rare body refinement treasure that could only be encountered and not sought after. Tuoba Linfeng, Gongyangji, Yuanzhua, and Huangfuzhua were originally Black Hole Realm Starry Sky powerhouses. Moreover, when they were infected with the undying indestructible poison, they didn't die, unlike Changyu Xiaotian. Therefore, they had the opportunity to successfully evolve into zombie kings. Although in the 2 zombie crises that occurred on the Heaven War planet, in addition to a large number of ordinary people being infected, there were also many unfortunate Starry Sky powerhouses that had met with misfortune. Some of them were even above Tuoba Linfeng and the other 3 in terms of cultivation realm and life level. They were existences at the origin realm or even the heavenly passage realm. But even so, only Tuoba Linfeng and the other 3 successfully mutated and evolved into zombie kings. This was because they were infected with the most primitive undying indestructible poison, while the ordinary people and a few Starry Sky powerhouses were infected with the undying indestructible poison from Changyu Xiaotian, Tuoba Linfeng, and the others. Clearly, they weren't on the same level. Among the 5, apart from Changyu Xiaotian, who had been turned into a bloody mist and completely dissipated, Tuoba Linfeng, Gongyangji, Yuanzhua, and Huangfuzhua without exception, had all withstood the undying indestructible poison's full invasion of their primordial spirit and corporeal body. Today they were indeed no longer normal humans. Every cell inside and outside of their bodies had completed a metamorphosis and embarked on a different path of evolution. From now on, they no longer needed to cultivate their divine intents because their primordial spirits had mutated and turned into a corpse core. This corpse core was the foundation of a zombie king's existence. It was the result of Tuoba Linfeng's group's primordial spirits in cultivation being corroded by the indestructible poison. According to the Devouring system, this kind of corpse core had an unparalleled effect on Starry Sky Masters who walked the path of body cultivation. Of course, it wouldn't be swallowed directly. Instead, it would be used in medicine. When refining the gene cultivation fluid required in the future, it would be fine to add a little of it. If one were to look at it from a different perspective, it could be seen as a flesh and blood consumable taken from the body of a ferocious beast and used as medicine. In fact, Tuoba Linfeng's group wasn't considered human anymore. They weren't even comparable to the various types of space beasts in the void of the universe. Even if it was only for the sake of cutting the corpse core, Yi Xian didn't have any psychological barriers. It was like killing chickens and dogs. Unfortunately, wanting to successfully kill these 4 zombie kings wasn't an easy matter. Even the Devouring system could only capture their aura at the very beginning. Afterward, they disappeared without a trace. Obviously, they concealed their aura and hid in the chaotic zombie army. This showed that they hadn't lost their consciousness. Although they had embarked on a different path of evolution, at least they weren't like those low-level cosmic zombies infected by the imperial capital. They were muddle-headed and had already lost their sense of self. Yi Xian was extremely suspicious that these 4 guys had completely retained their memories and wisdom before they mutated. This wasn't a groundless rumor. Tonight's zombie rampage was too sudden. Moreover, it broke out at the same time from 4 different directions of the imperial capital. It was as if it had been arranged beforehand. It gave people a feeling of a tight organization and meticulous planning. And the mastermind behind all of this, who else could it be other than Tuoba Linfeng and Gongyangji? The undying indestructible poison was already terrifying to begin with. These 4 fellows used this strange poison to walk a completely different path of evolution. Even their original memories and wisdom were completely preserved. The danger index could be said to have increased by a large margin. Yi Xian immediately became vigilant. He had a strong sense of crisis. Taking advantage of the fact that these 4 guys had just mutated, their growth was still limited. He had to kill them as soon as possible. Otherwise, they would become a big problem in the future. This was also one of the reasons why Yi Xian decided to take the risk and stay on Heaven Battle Planet. He had a deep grudge with Tuoba Linfeng and Gongyangji, so he couldn't sit by and watch them grow stronger quickly. These four guys' cultivation realm was originally at the Black Hole realm. When they left the Medicine King's secret realm, they used the undying poison to mutate and transform, breaking through the bottleneck in one fell swoop and entering the origin realm. Now that a few days have passed after successfully mutating, their strength must have soared by a large margin. It is very likely that they are not too far away from the 10th Great Realm, the Grotto Heaven realm. While pondering, Yi Xian whispered softly, slightly frowning, his mind turning quickly, and he soon made a decision. Although these four guys are already in the origin realm, I have the undying glass armor and the withered demon bloodblade, both of which are quasi-starry sky supreme treasures. I may be able to fight them. In addition, although the undying poison is terrifying, the undying glass armor is completely sealed. The previous mecha's cabin door has disappeared. Only after refining can I equip it. There are no gaps, so it should be able to isolate the poison and avoid being infected in battle. Thinking of this, Yi Xian's fighting spirit was instantly aroused. Strictly speaking, this battle was actually the first time since he entered the starry sky that he would truly rely on his own strength to fight across a great realm. Naturally, there was an inexplicable expectation in his heart. Withered demon bloodblade. While surging with emotions, Yi Xian shook his hand, and a black light instantly sprang out of his body. It expanded with the wind, and in the blink of an eye, it turned into a glossy pitch-black blade covered in fine blood patterns. Its shape was extremely ferocious and domineering. It was the quasi-starry sky supreme treasure weapon, the withered demon bloodblade. This blade had been fused and tempered 6 times by Yi Xian, expending a lot of resources and energy, but it had never truly accompanied him on the bloodshed battlefield. In today's battle, Yi Xian decided to use the mutated blood of zombie kings to sharpen its edge. Although the withered demon bloodblade spirit was still in a deep sleep, this blade already had the strange effect of absorbing the blood of its prey before the 6th fusion. Now that it had been fused with the withered demon bloodblade, its power in this aspect should be even stronger. As the saying went, fight poison with poison. Yi Xian believed that even the universe zombies that had mutated due to the undying poison would suffer the same fate when facing the withered demon bloodblade. Even if the mutated blood was extremely poisonous, this blade would still absorb it. Chapter 3274. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Battle Zombie King. The Devouring system's keen detection ability was indeed very powerful. Just as the system had indicated to Yi Xian, Tuoba Linfeng, Gong Yangji, Yuan Zhua, and Huang Fuzhua had indeed successfully withstood the corrosion and assimilation of the undying poison on their bodies and primordial spirits. Because of this, they had transformed and evolved into zombie kings. The strength of the four people had also greatly increased with this transformation, and they had stepped into the 9th realm, the origin level 9 perfection. With just one more breakthrough, they would be able to cross another realm and become the 10th realm, the Grotto Heaven realm. This kind of speed was really incredible. Even Yi Xian, who had been constantly having adventures since entering the universe, could only watch and sigh. He couldn't compare at all. Not only that, after the transformation, the four people even obtained an evil cultivation technique from the undying poison in their bodies, which should have originated from the primordial era. The four people had all transformed into zombie kings, and their primordial spirits had condensed into zombie cores. They couldn't cultivate their previous cultivation techniques anymore, and even their magic treasures were the same. These incomplete primordial cultivation techniques and divine abilities solved the problem, and they were very compatible with their current poisonous zombie bodies. The undying poison was originally formed by the resentment of countless powerful creatures from the primordial era, who died in the battle of the primordial era countless years ago. It was normal for it to be mixed with some cultivation techniques from the primordial era, or some bloodline divine abilities of the creatures from the primordial era. The divine abilities and cultivation techniques that could leave a mark in the undying poison naturally couldn't be those with the attribute and power of the blazing sun. Moreover, they were incomplete and incomplete. But even so, these and evil cultivation techniques and divine abilities originated from the primordial era, and they originated from the first generation of creatures from the primordial era. No matter how incomplete they were, their power couldn't be underestimated. Tuoba Linfeng obtained a primordial demonic cultivation technique, called the Demonic Life Transformation Technique. Besides that, There was also an incomplete divine ability called the Devil Flame Skyflash/, and it was unknown which ancient existence it originated from. Once this divine ability was executed, it was capable of condensing the energy of poisonous corpses into form to launch attacks that were swift like lightning. Its might was terrifying and evil, and it was even capable of absorbing the vitality, vital energy, and soul core energy of its opponent. It could be called a corpse Dao secret technique. Gong Yangji's luck was also not bad. Although the inheritance he obtained was also incomplete, it was called the Ghost Refining Berserk Devil technique, but its power was quite terrifying. This technique had a palm technique called the Purgatory Thunder Palm, which could actually cause corpse thunder and even corpse electricity with a raise of the hand, which was shocking. As for Yuan Zhua and Huangfu Zhua, both they were translation of art demon art translation art. The former emitted the nether corpse flames, whereas the latter refined the baleful blood poison aura. Both of them were extremely poisonous, and once they effused out from the body, they were capable of instantly developing a large expanse of deathless land that was completely devoid of vitality. Tonight's zombie outbreak was indeed carefully planned by Tuoba Linfeng, Gong Yangji, and the other three. They had successfully completed the transformation and evolution yesterday. Their primordial spirits had mutated, condensing into a gray corpse core in their bodies, transforming them into zombie kings. They had an innate suppression on the other ordinary zombies on the bloodline level. More importantly, they had not lost their original memories and intelligence, and had been completely preserved. After realizing that they were no longer humans, and that even their own family would not accept them, the four of them had a complete change of heart after a series of struggles. Last night, the four of them, through the gray corpse core in their bodies, emitted a wave frequency similar to a biological wave. They controlled all the infected people in their respective areas and comforted them to not act rashly. Through these hibernating zombies in the universe, they finally agreed to attack together tonight and capture the Heaven War Emperor's capital in one fell swoop. It sounded a bit unimaginable, but in fact it was extremely possible. Every zombie was a source of poison. Even if they were killed, the corpse poison emitted from their bodies could create more of their kind. Just like a rolling snowball, as the number of zombies increased, the number of zombies under the four of them would increase exponentially. What was the big deal about destroying an emperor's capital? Tuoba Linfeng, Gong Yangji, and the other three even had a detailed plan. After capturing the Heaven War Emperor's capital, they would lead the universe's zombie army to continue their expedition until all the cities on the Heaven War planet were captured. After thoroughly controlling the planet, they would temporarily stop fighting and recuperate. In the future, when the entire universe's zombie army was fully developed, they would lead the army to rush out of the Heaven War planet and conquer the vast starry sky outside. This grand plan was not a so-called dream. There was an extremely high possibility of it becoming a reality, but the most important thing right now was the first step, to capture the Heaven War Emperor's capital. If he couldn't even do this, everything that followed would be nothing more than an illusion. Regarding this, Tuoba Linfeng and the other three were all clear. The four great zombie kings had reached an astonishing consensus. In tonight's battle, they would either succeed and occupy the emperor's capital, or be annihilated. They could only cut off their means of retreat. Humans wouldn't give them too much time to grow. At this moment, the four of them were leading their respective universe's zombie army. From four different directions, they slowly advanced towards the central plaza of the outer city. They would meet there and first occupy the entire emperor's capital's outer city, then advance towards the inner city's emperor's palace. The sky had not yet brightened. In just a short 4 hours, the entire emperor's capital's outer city had changed beyond recognition. At least 70% of the universe's experts and citizens had left this area. The remaining 30% had either been infected with the corpse poison and integrated into the zombie army, or they couldn't leave. They could only tremble and find a place to hide, waiting for death to claim them. Along the way, the four great zombie armies wreaked havoc. Everywhere they passed, they had already turned into a demonic land. The human silhouettes were becoming fewer and fewer, but the number of zombies in the four great armies was constantly increasing. Tuoba Linfeng and Gong Yangji didn't reveal their presence. They carefully hid in the center of the four great zombie armies. For them, the current Heaven War Emperor's capital was still very dangerous. It was impossible for all the experts in the inner city's emperor's palace to have left. Most likely there were people spying on them. Once they discovered that there was a king-level existence in the zombie army, they would definitely use all their strength to kill them. Unfortunately, no matter how careful they were still discovered in the end. Screech! In the eastern region of the outer city, a soul-stirring cold whistle suddenly sounded. A mysterious blood-black light tore through the night sky and rapidly plunged into the universe's zombie army in the eastern region of the outer city. Zheng! The blood-black light arrived in the blink of an eye. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a blood-red heavenly blade that was more than 10 zhang long. It was ferocious and ferocious. With a sweep in the air, it instantly killed more than 100 universe zombies. A small gap immediately appeared in the densely packed zombie army. Roar! Not far away, the zombie king Huangfuz was suddenly roared. No longer hiding his body, he rushed towards the blood-red heavenly blade. Chapter 3275. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Corpse core in hand. The withered demon blood blade transformed into a heavenly blade and slashed down. In the blink of an eye, more than 100 cosmic zombies were annihilated. Even the mutant zombie energy in their bodies was absorbed in an instant, completely turning them into a gray dust that scattered with the wind. Not only was this scene sudden, it was also too shocking. The entire army was alarmed. Mournful roars rose and fell one after another. Over 100,000 cosmic zombies surged like a surging tide and pounced over together. They were enraged. In addition, the king of the zombie army in the eastern region of the outer city, Huangfuzhua, leaped up with a roar. He activated the evil blood poison aura and shot toward the withered demon blood blade like a blood-colored sunset. Shio! It was also at this moment that a second incomparably sharp whistling sound pierced through the air from the direction of the withered demon blood blade. Yi Xian, who'd activated the second state of the undying glass armor, was like a miniature purple meteor as he descended in an incomparably stunning manner. Before the person arrived, the right arm of the mech was already raised. Immediately after, a black energy ball with a diameter of more than 1 meter appeared, enveloping the entire right forearm. After a flash, it immediately blasted out, as if crossing the void, and rushed into the zombie army in an instant. Zilala! The black antimatter energy of the death ray cannon was absolutely destructive. All matter and energy would be melted. Even these cosmic zombies that were infected with strange poisons and claimed to be immortal and indestructible. With just one shot, more than 100 cosmic zombies were instantly vaporized. A faint sound like boiling oil splashing water could be heard in the void, making one's scalp tingle. All of this happened too quickly. From the time the withered demon blood blade turned into a heavenly blade and slashed down, it took less than 3 breaths. But even so, in the shuttles and battleships of various sizes that crisscrossed in the distant sky, many human powerhouses were still alarmed. After seeing this scene through the holographic virtual screen, they all gasped and exclaimed in shock. Heavens, what is that? Someone dares to charge into the zombie army alone? Does he want to die? Mech? Mech! Who can tell me what is going on? Had the Heaven's Legacy race invaded? I actually saw a combat mech that was more than 10 feet in size, and it even had a mini antimatter death ray cannon. This is unbelievable. Our human race definitely doesn't have such a thing. Look at that zombie, there's actually a bloody aura that's so thick that it's almost solid, gushing out of its body, wrapping around its entire body as it soared into the air, like a bloody setting sun streaking across the sky. What exactly happened? This universe zombie is too different. Is there a new mutation? Don't look anymore. Let's quickly leave and rush out of the atmosphere. Otherwise, something will happen sooner or later. These space zombies are mutating at every moment. The Heaven Battle Planet can't be protected. Perhaps only the planet's defensive formation within the atmosphere can stop them. Along with these cries of surprise, on the ground to the east of the outskirts of the capital, the zombie king Huangfuzhua, whose entire body was enveloped by the evil blood poison aura, and Yi Xian, who was wearing a combat suit, finally began to fight. Screech! The withered demon blood blade whistled through the air and instantly rushed in front of Yi Xian, who stretched out his right arm and caught it in his hand. Without hesitation, he slashed out with his blade. This scene was too stunning. The purple mech that was more than 10 feet tall was like a mountain giant, and in its hand was a ferocious heavenly blade that was about the same size as its body. It imperceptibly emitted a domineering aura that dazzled everyone. "It's actually you?" Ling Huju, although your combat suit is strong, your cultivation realm is too weak. You may be invincible among your peers, but you can't shake a late-stage origin point existence. The zombie king Huangfu's cold voice came from within the bloody aura, faintly tinged with excitement. His speed suddenly skyrocketed, and his figure suddenly disappeared from the void. When he reappeared, he was already on the right side of Yi Xian, like the evil blood poison aura that blotted out the sky and covered the earth. A second quasi-starry sky supreme treasure? This blood blade, this king wants it. Yi Xian didn't care, but he understood. It seemed that his previous guess was right. Not only did these 4 guys successfully survive the corrosion of the undying poison aura and transform into zombie kings, but they were also lucky enough to retain their original memories and wisdom, embarking on a new path of evolution. Rumble. Boom! As the evil blood poison aura that blotted out the sky and covered the earth fell, the mech was sucked into it and could no longer be seen. However, almost in the next moment, the evil blood poison aura that spread over an area of nearly 10,000 meters in the sky above the northern side of the outer city, a series of violent explosions sounded continuously. This was clearly the rhythm of an intense battle. The momentum was too shocking. All the human experts who were still paying attention to this area in the distance had their hearts in their throats. At the same time, in the Heaven Battle Emperor Palace in the inner city of the imperial capital, although the inner city had yet to be affected by the zombie uprising, the entire The Arch Palace was already in chaos. Above the huge plaza outside the Arch Palace, there were many star fortresses with a diameter of 10,000 meters floating in the air. The main passage was opened, and figures were rushing in one after another. The entire The Arch Palace was in an emergency evacuation, and all the important resources were stored in the spatial treasure. Not far from the Emperor Palace, at the top of the Emperor Palace's main hall, a few figures with restrained aura quietly stood there, emitting a certain kind of terrifying pressure. The one in the lead was a middle-aged man with his hands behind his back. He looked at the outer city with a dignified gaze, as if he could see through the distant void and clearly see everything that was happening in the outer city. This middle-aged man was the Emperor of the Heaven Battle Empire. His cultivation was unfathomable, and at least he was not comparable to the Devil King Mo Wentian. There were more than 10 figures behind him. They were either the elders of the Heaven Battle Emperor clan, or the important ministers of the empire. They were all supreme experts, but at this moment, there was deep helplessness and regret on their faces. The situation is deteriorating too fast. In the blink of an eye, more than half of the outer city has fallen. There were only a few thousand zombies in the universe at first, but now there are more than 1 million and it's still rising. Even if I kill them at the same time, it's useless. We can kill all the zombies, but we can't guarantee that the corpse poison won't spread. At that time we'll have to face another wave of zombie army, and it'll be endless. Give the order. Evacuate the inner city. Take all the resources that can be taken and leave as soon as possible. At this point, the Emperor of the Heaven Battle Empire suddenly paused. After a long sigh, he turned around and stepped into the void, disappearing. His voice was still echoing. In addition, don't take the central superbrain of the Heaven Battle Galaxy's level 2 star network. Try to find one when you rebuild the imperial capital in the future. The star defense formation needs it to maintain. Otherwise, once the zombie army rushes out of the atmosphere, I'm afraid there will be a big mess. Boom! Screech! In the sky on the east side of the outer city, the fierce battle of life and death had just begun, and it had only lasted for about 3 minutes. A huge explosion sounded, and the desperate scream of the zombie king Huangfu's were resounded in the night sky. Chapter 3276. Corpse flame overflows the sky. Ding. Congratulations to host, you have obtained the desolate poison corpse core. Ding. Congratulations to host, your physical body's blood chi realm has increased. Current realm. Black hole realm level 6. Ding. Congratulations to host, your physical body's blood chi realm has increased. Current realm. Black hole realm level 7. As Yi Xian stepped out of the blood poison shield, The familiar system notification sounded in his mind. Other than the notification of obtaining the corpse core, there was also the unexpected reward of increasing his realm. In this battle, although Yi Xian had used the undying glass armor and the withered demon bloodblade, other than the first antimatter energy death ray cannon, Yi Xian had only used his body to fight for the next 3 minutes of intense battle, and did not use the death ray cannon again. Although the battle was short, ending in less than 3 minutes, this battle was very satisfying, and it gave Yi Xian a sense of satisfaction that surpassed himself. The potential of his physical body was pushed to the extreme, and the residual effects of the gene fluid in his cells were completely digested, causing his physical body's blood chi power to increase greatly, and his realm to increase by 2 levels. Boom! Before Yi Xian's heart could fade away, a loud bang came from the ground behind him. The blood poison shield in the air was very thin, and almost completely dispersed. Zombie King Huangfu's withered body fell to the ground, and as soon as it hit the ground, it exploded, turning into a cloud of gray fog that scattered in all directions. From then on it turned into ashes. Everything that belonged to it had been taken away by Yi Xian, and contained in the gray corpse core that was only the size of a pigeon's egg. Yi Xian had already kept it in his undying world, and handed it over to the devouring system to process. This desolate poison corpse core was the foundation of the Zombie King's existence. It was the product of Huangfu's, Tuoba Linfeng's, and the others Yuan spirits in cultivation after being invaded and mutated by the undying poison shield. According to the devouring system, it had an incomparably wonderful effect on the body refinement of the body of a starry sky expert. Just this one, after being processed by the system into a gray pill powder of the same quality, was enough for Yi Xian to consume for a long time. Every time it was concocted or refined, it only needed to add a little bit. Its main function was actually like a catalyst, and a small amount could cause a complete qualitative change. Screech. Roar. Screech. While Yi Xian was hesitating whether or not to kill the zombie army below him, in the far direction of the central square in the outer city, in the darkness of the night, in the direction of the outer city square, suddenly 3 terrifying roars. Yi Xian turned around and his expression couldn't help but slightly change. On the ground in the distance, a terrifying zombie army was rolling over. It was like a surging wave. There was no end in sight. There were at least 1 million of them. Obviously, the zombie armies in the other 3 directions of the outer city square had successfully converged, and they were aware of the changes in the eastern district, so they immediately rushed over to help. The 3 howls and roars came from the other 3 zombie kings. At that moment, they had already soared into the sky in anger. Although there were only 3 of them, they were extremely eye-catching in the distance. Their light was too strange and their aura was too shocking. Even the million-strong zombie army on the ground was suppressed by them. The 3 figures were lined up in a row, and they were rushing towards Yi Xian's location. On the left was Gong Yangji. He had inherited the ghost refining berserk technique, and its power was quite terrifying. This technique came with a palm technique called the Purgatory Thunder Palm. He could raise his hand and shoot out corpse thunder and even corpse electricity, which was shocking. At this moment, his body was rumbling, and from time to time, there were gray and black corpse electricity flashing around his body, accompanied by the sound of exploding corpse thunder, covering a large area of 10,000 meters. On the right was Yuan Zhua. Like Huangfu, he didn't inherit a desolate era technique, even if it was incomplete. However, he had obtained an extraordinarily powerful desolate era divine ability. At the same time, the desolate poison corpse energy in his body had actually evolved into the netherworld corpse fire. Amidst the grayish-black color, there was a pale green color. It covered the sky and earth in a radius of 10,000 meters. It looked extremely frightening, but Yuan Zhua was completely unscathed. As for the figure in the middle, it was naturally Tuoba Linfeng. What he obtained was a primordial devil cultivation technique called the demonic transformation art. This primordial devil cultivation technique obviously had an extraordinary origin and was of a very high grade. Even if it couldn't compare to the void cauldron that Yi Xian cultivated, it wouldn't be too far off. It should have been left behind by a supreme being from the primordial era, who was second only to the primordial void tortoise. It was precisely because he had obtained the demonic transformation technique that Tuoba Linfeng was the most powerful of the 4 zombie kings. At this moment, the three zombie kings came together, and Gong Yangji and Yuan Zhuo were clearly following his lead. In addition to the demonic transformation technique, Tuoba Linfeng had also obtained another incomplete technique called the demonic flame space flash. Once it was used, the poison corpse energy would condense into form and launch a lightning-fast attack. Its power was terrifying and evil, and it could even absorb the opponent's vitality, blood, and primordial spirit energy. It could be called a corpse Dao secret technique. At this moment, there was clearly a 300-meter-long demonic blade that was like a mountain hanging above Tuoba Linfeng's head. It was gray with blood-green patterns, and it was incomparably evil. Yi Xian only glanced at it, and he already felt a bit of fear. A very strong intuition told him that this blood-green demonic blade was very strange. It might be able to leave a cut on his combat armor with just one slash. It seems that Huang Fuzhua is the weakest of the four. I really don't know if I should rejoice or feel pity. Sighing in his heart, Yi Xian couldn't help but smile bitterly. It was obvious that the three zombie kings in front of them were all extremely powerful. Even the weakest among them, Yuan Zhuo, emitted an aura that was slightly stronger than Huang Fuzhua, who was cut down by Yi Xian. There was no need to mention the other two. The zombie army had already reached a small stage. 3 zombie kings, millions of zombie soldiers. It could be said that the zombie flames were monstrous. If he could choose again, Yi Xian would rather choose the strongest of the 4 great zombie kings, Tuoba Linfeng, as if he was lucky enough to randomly choose an opponent. Although he was strong, Yi Xian believed that if he used all his strength, he should have a chance to cut him down. It was just that it might take a little longer. If he killed the strongest first, even if the weaker ones joined forces, the pressure wouldn't be too great. But now it was different. The 3 zombie kings were coming together. Unless Yi Xian used the Rai-Di seal or the fallen sky bow, he would have no chance. However, if he did, his true identity would be exposed instantly. The thunder source bead and the fallen sky bow had been used in front of others before. They had long become Prince Xian's golden signboards. If I were to fight 1 against 3, I would have to at least break through to the origin realm to have a chance. Even then, it would only be half of the time. Because the other side is also growing, and the speed is not slow at all. Muttering to himself, Yi Xian immediately extinguished the restless fighting spirit in his heart. He waved his hand and put the withered demon blood blade into his body. He turned around and turned into a dark purple light, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Chapter 3277. Doomsday Catastrophe. Yi Xian's sudden departure made Tuoba Linfeng, Gong Yangji, and Yuan Zhuo furious. The 3 zombie kings roared for half a day before stopping. The entire outer city was on the verge of collapsing. After a fruitless search, the 3 zombie kings quickly gathered all the zombies in the universe and formed an army of 1 million. In a short 2 to 4 hours, they completely controlled the entire outer city. When the sky was bright, the outer city had been completely turned into a land of death. The total number of the zombie army was more than 5 million. The black mass of soldiers gathered from all directions and surrounded the edge of the inner city. As long as Tuoba Linfeng gave the order, they would rush into the inner city and occupy the Heaven Battle Emperor Palace. This scene was too despairing. Originally, there were still a few powerful imperial guards stationed in the inner city's Emperor Palace. They harbored a faint hope of guarding this place. If the zombie army didn't attack the inner city, they would have stayed behind to guard the Emperor Palace and wait for the Emperor to kill his way in from the Heaven Battle Planet and restore the land. But now, with the millions of troops of the universe's zombie army pressuring the border, they could launch a general attack at any time and invade the inner palace. These powerful Imperial Guard legions were completely desperate. They no longer struggled and boarded the ships to retreat. An hour later, the last 3-star fortresses in the Imperial Palace in the inner city finally rose into the air and disappeared into the atmosphere. At this point, the inner city was completely empty. The Imperial Palace was abandoned. The Heaven Battle Emperor Palace had completely fallen. Screech! Screech! After a short while, Tuoba Linfeng, Gong Yangji, and Yuan Zhuo, the 3 zombie kings, suddenly let out a screech. Their bodies rose into the air and rushed into the inner city, heading straight for the Imperial Palace. The roar was like a war horn, and it seemed to have some kind of unknown power. The countless universe zombies on the ground below were originally quiet, but with the roar of the zombie king, all the universe zombies were almost instantly excited. The roar of the zombies rose one after another, and the entire zombie army was like a raging wave. In the blink of an eye, they rushed toward the inner city, rolling and rolling before dawn. All the other cities in the Heaven Battle Planet had received the news and started an emergency evacuation. Even when the Heaven War Imperial capital had completely fallen, there were still a large number of different models of battleships taking to the skies. It was extremely busy and chaotic. After all, this was one of the 3 great imperial capitals under the Emperor dynasty. There were countless cities on the Heaven Battle Planet, both on land and in the sea. The population was in the hundreds of billions. It was obviously impossible to evacuate everyone in a short period of time. Furthermore, there was still a large amount of resources that needed to be taken away, which would take time. Fortunately, after the zombie army took full control of the imperial capital, they did not immediately set off to attack the other cities. Instead, they began to take a short break, which made countless human experts and imperial citizens who were still in the city feel relieved. However, the speed of evacuation was even faster. This was because everyone knew that they didn't have much time left. Very soon, a terrifying zombie army would emerge from the imperial capital and charge towards the various cities of the Heaven Battle Planet. Yi Xian didn't know any of this. At this moment, he had already reached the depths of the imperial capital's inner city, and was preparing to break through to the next realm and increase his strength. After escaping from the outer city, Yi Xian didn't go too far. Instead, he went underground from the outer city and returned to the inner city. Only then did he lay in ambush. It was said that the most dangerous place was the safest. Yi Xian was worried that he would be ambushed while he was cultivating, so he had to be on guard. Other than that, there was another reason why he decided to lay in ambush. Once he broke through to the origin realm, he would be able to make a move at any time. He might even have the chance to sneak in and kill the 3 zombie kings when they were separated. Staying here would allow him to observe from a close distance. He had a secret spiritual technique that perfectly concealed his aura, so he wasn't afraid of being discovered. After confirming that everything was in order, Yi Xian didn't hesitate any longer. He immediately took out a large amount of star core sources from his undying world and threw them all to the Devouring system. He then gave the order to absorb the star core sources at full speed. His void dimension technique was still stuck at level 1 black hole realm. His knowledge C, which represented his cultivation power, had stopped expanding during this period. However, his physical body and blood energy had broken through to level 7 black hole realm after the battle with Huang Fuzhua. Right now, Yi Xian wanted to improve his physical body in terms of blood energy. The only benefit of the path of physical evolution was that every time he consumed a bottle of genetic cultivation fluid, he would successfully break through to a new realm. In that case, there wouldn't be any bottlenecks in the subsequent realms after that realm. All he needed to do was to absorb all kinds of energy and natural treasures that could improve his physical body and blood energy. As his physical body improved step by step, when his blood energy reached a certain level, breaking through to the next realm would be as easy as water flowing through a canal. Of course, there was a limit to how fast a normal Starry Sky expert could absorb energy. Therefore, even if there was no bottleneck, it was still very difficult for them to break through to the next realm. For a freak like Yi Xian, who not only had the devouring system to absorb the energy from the star core, but also had all kinds of natural treasures that could improve his physical body and blood energy. Even in the entire immortal dynasty, how many of such freaks could one find? Apart from the star core, Yi Xian was afraid that he wouldn't be able to guarantee his safety. At the same time, he took out a large amount of natural treasures from the undying world that he had collected in the past. With Yi Xian's current level of physical evolution, these things wouldn't have any obvious effects on his physical body. However, there was a large amount of them. After refining the essence and swallowing them all, they would still be of some help. In order to break through to the origin realm as soon as possible, he was going all out this time. A day passed quickly, and the day turned into night once again. Yi Xian, who was deep underground in the imperial capital, was still cultivating and had not finished. At this time, as night fell, the zombie army in the Heavenly War imperial capital finally rushed out of the imperial capital under the leadership of the 3 zombie kings, Tuoba Linfeng, Gong Yangji, and Yuan Zhua. Millions of zombies in the universe were like locusts pressing in, charging towards the largest city. The real bloodbath had begun. This apocalyptic calamity that engulfed the entire Heaven Battle planet had finally begun. After the terrifying calamity that happened in the Heaven Battle Empire's capital erupted that night, it was immediately transmitted through the Empire's second-level star network at the fastest speed. The three universes were shaken. The myriad Luo Federation was in an uproar. The humans of the third universe were even more alarmed, especially in the territory of the Heavenly War Empire, one of the three great empires of the dynasty. The reaction of the countless large and small countries under the rule of the empire was even more intense. The imperial capital had fallen overnight, and even the stars had begun to evacuate. What kind of terrifying catastrophe was this? These large and small countries were all quite a distance away from the imperial capital, the Heavenly Battle planet. Even the closest administrative planet was not adjacent to the imperial capital. But even so, all the experts within the Heavenly Battle Empire's territory, especially the ordinary citizens, did not have the slightest sense of security. A small portion of the Empire's territory was trembling, and everyone was in a state of panic. Chapter 3278. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. The wind foreshadows the coming storm. The human race in the third universe had been experiencing troubled times recently. Unexpected and huge changes had occurred one after another. Not only had it affected the third universe where the human race was located, but it had also affected the Wan Luo Federation, including many federal races in the second universe. Furthermore, it had triggered many subtle chain changes. The human race and even the entire Wan Luo Federation were in an unstable situation. The Tianji race, the overlord of the first universe, obviously wouldn't miss this opportunity. Although they had remained silent and hadn't made any moves, it was precisely because of this that people felt uneasy. This time, the three universes were most likely affected. It was highly likely that there would be even more changes in the future. Countless experts in the three universes felt their hearts sink. They could vaguely feel that a storm was coming. The crisis caused by the Death Star field not long ago had yet to be resolved. The various races in the second universe's federation were still continuously pressuring the Wan Luo Federation headquarters. The situation was already tense enough. However, at this time, one of the three empires under the human race's technology faction, the Heavenly Battle Empire, suddenly released such shocking news. In just one night, the imperial capital had fallen, and the Emperor planet had been abandoned. This was definitely a super huge earthquake in the universe. Its power wasn't any weaker than the Death Star field crisis. The entire Federation was shaken to the core, and it took a long time for them to regain their senses. The day after the shocking change on the Heavenly Battle planet, the Heavenly Battle Empire submitted a serious protest to the Federation headquarters. Of course, it was submitted through the Immortal Dynasty. As one of the three empires under the dynasty, the Heavenly Battle Empire didn't have the qualifications to directly negotiate with the Federation headquarters. When this protest was submitted, the Emperor planet's fleet that had evacuated from the Heavenly Battle planet was still sailing in the vast universe. There were countless densely packed ships. The large ones were small fortresses with a diameter of 50,000 meters, the small ones were planetary-level battleships with a length of 1,000 meters, and even small private battleships with a length of several hundred meters could be seen everywhere. The incomparably large battleships formed a terrifyingly large fleet. There were at least tens of thousands of them, covering a large area of the void. They were rushing towards the capital of a large country called the Heavenly Chan Nation, Heavenly Chan Planet. Since the Heaven Battle planet was no more, they could not just keep wandering in the void of the universe. The Empire's officials were temporarily stationed on the Heaven Battle planet. All of the Empire's officials, soldiers, and members of the Heaven Battle Emperor clan were all settled down. Arrangements had also been made for some of the top experts and top-notch clans on the Heaven Battle planet. As for the ordinary citizens of the Empire and the bottom-level Starry Sky Masters, they were divided into more than a dozen teams and headed to other administrative planets. Although Tianshan planet was the capital of a large country under the rule of the Empire, no matter how big it would not be able to accommodate all the refugees that had escaped from Tianshan planet. If all of them were to go there, it would definitely explode. Previously, the various races of the Second Universe's Federation had pressured the headquarters of the Federation to launch an attack on the Tenju Celestial Palace of the Human Clan's cultivation camp. And this time, the protest and statement submitted by the Immortal Dynasty to the headquarters of the Federation was from the human race's science and technology camp. They were putting pressure on the various races of the Federation of the Second Universe. The culprit that caused the fall of the Heaven Battle Empire's capital, and the abandonment of the entire Heaven Battle planet, was the Demon clan from the Second Universe. The evidence of this matter was conclusive. A few days before the second zombie crisis broke out in the Heaven Battle Empire's capital, the Empire's officials had already thoroughly investigated. A large number of Demon clan experts from the Second Universe had mixed in with the Barbarian Bull clan's merchant fleet and infiltrated the Third Universe of the human race. After arriving at the Heaven Battle starfield, they had caused chaos on the same day and followed the prodigies of the 16 top-notch clans into a secret realm. In the end, not only did the Demon clan snatch away the Medicine King's inheritance, which was of great strategic importance to the human race's science and technology camp, they also killed more than 10 prodigies and heirs of the top-notch clans. Before they escaped, they even released an extremely terrifying poison. After a few days of dormancy, the entire Heaven Battle Empire's capital fell into enemy hands in just one night. The Emperor planet was also abandoned because of this. The loss of the human race's science and technology camp was simply too great to be estimated. It was too shocking. But all of this shouldn't have happened. Outside the wormhole connecting the Second Universe to the First Universe of the human race, there had always been an army of the Federation guarding it. Almost all of them were experts chosen by the Federation of the Second Universe. With this army guarding the entrance of the wormhole, how could the Demon clan, who wasn't a Federation race, enter? Moreover, they had mixed in with the Barbarian Bull clan's merchant fleet to come to the First Universe. The Barbarian Bull clan was one of the races in the Second Universe that had joined the Wan Luo Federation. This race had an unshirkable responsibility for the huge change and heavy loss of the human race's science and technology camp this time. Even all the other races of the Federation in the Second Universe couldn't escape the blame. The Immortal Dynasty was extremely suspicious that the Barbarian Bull clan had secretly colluded with the Demon clan. There might be more than one such race in the Second Universe of the Federation. This was too shocking. It was simply unimaginable. The reason why the Immortal Dynasty submitted the protest and statement of accountability was to put pressure on the Federation's headquarters to thoroughly investigate all the races of the Federation in the Second Universe and carry out a great purge. As soon as the news and content of the protest was revealed, the two universes were instantly in an uproar. Needless to say, the races of the Federation in the Second Universe had all kinds of reactions. Some were cursing, some were defending, and some were even mocking. In some places that weren't considered public, there were even clamors for opening the door. As for the two camps of the human race in the Third Universe, their reactions were even more intense. Especially the Immortal Dynasty in the Science and Technology camp, they were simply enraged. A terrifying crisis was right next to them, so naturally they were incomparably sympathetic. Without a doubt, with such a disturbance, the internal conflicts of the Wan Luo Federation became even more intense. The situation was so urgent that it was suffocating. Whether it was the Third Universe of the human race or the Second Universe of the Federation, all showed signs of unrest. Everyone was in danger. A supreme catastrophe that was very likely to sweep across the three universes seemed to be coming soon. At this time, from the Tenju Celestial Palace in the human cultivation camp, another piece of shocking news unexpectedly came. Immediately after, the Heavenly Wind Empire, one of the three empires of the human race's science and technology camp, unexpectedly sent out a similar message, which once again shook the entire Federation. Countless experts and Federation citizens were completely at a loss. Was the era of peace coming to an end, and the era of continuous war in the starfield was coming again? And this time the outbreak of war was very likely not only to start between the Wan Luo Federation and the overlord of the First Universe, the Tianji clan, but also to start between the human race in the First Universe and the races of the Federation in the Second Universe within the Federation. Even the possibility of a war between the two camps of the human race in the First Universe couldn't be completely ruled out. The fuse of the civil strife of the human race had clearly shown itself. Chapter 3279. Hateful Zither playing witch dust. There were two pieces of news from the cultivation camp, both of which were related to Yixian. The first piece of news was that the undying dark phoenix that had been awakened in the depths of the ancestral land of the sixth palace of the 10 ultimates had returned in vain after chasing after Yi Xian's devouring avatar. It had reached out with its claws and captured Zhao Lingyang. The only daughter of the sixth palace master, Tian Qianzi, had finally reappeared. However, the key to this news wasn't the undead dark phoenix. It had only appeared for a brief moment before disappearing again. Its purpose seemed to be only to show its face and announce to the outside world that Zhao Lingyang had a deep relationship with it, and that she was under its protection. That's right, the real focus of this news was Zhao Lingyang. After losing contact for a period of time, she had reappeared and even stole the limelight of the undying dark phoenix. At that time she was clearly standing on the back of the undying dark phoenix, flying from a remote star field in the 10 absolute heavenly palace. The undying dark phoenix brought Zhao Lingyang around the star field and visited several planets occupied by various small forces and sections. Countless powerful cultivators saw them. Then it put Zhao Lingyang down and turned back alone. Without a doubt, after the undying dark phoenix left, Zhao Lingyang immediately became the target of countless experts. Some people were shocked to discover that her cultivation had actually risen by a terrifying amount in a short period of time. Previously, when the sixth palace of the 10 ultimates changed, her cultivation base had already experienced an astonishing leap. Originally, her cultivation base was only at the origin 7th level, but after falling into the demonic dust that day, it had strangely skyrocketed, directly crossing a large realm and stepping into the Grotto Heaven 7th level. Right now, Zhao Lingyang's cultivation had risen from the 9th level of the Grotto Heaven realm to the 10th level of the Mystic Light realm. The peak of the 9th level of the Mystic Light realm. With just one more breakthrough, he would be able to enter the 11th realm of the Starry Sky and step into the ranks of the Supreme Void Masters in one fell swoop. Besides that, Zhao Lingyang's disappearance this time seemed to be due to other fortuitous encounters. Not only did her cultivation soar to a terrifying level, when she reappeared, there was a beautiful and ancient jade zither in her hand. According to Zhao Lingyang herself, this zither was called Hateful End. Its sound could control one's soul, control one's joy and sorrow, and create endless illusions at the soul level. Its origin was even more extraordinary. It was rumored to be an item from the primordial era. A supreme musical treasure refined by a certain supreme being from the primordial era using the 9 heaven spiritual jade, and the silk of the heavenly demonic silkworm. Even the entire body of the zither was actually carved from a piece of fallen phoenix tree that came from the 9th netherworld prison. Of course, what resided on this piece of fallen phoenix tree was not an ordinary phoenix, but the undying dark phoenix of the 9th netherworld prison. However, there was no way of knowing whether or not it was the same one that had appeared in the human cultivator camp. Although the main material of this zither came from the 9th netherworld prison, its surface was suffused with a gentle white light. Its sound could make people feel peaceful, and it had the mysterious power to control the hearts of all things. It was originally a mascot. Unfortunately, the person who refined this zither was bewitched by the heavenly demon in his heart, and fell into the demonic path. He called himself the Zither Demon, and this was how the name Hateful End came about. All of this was information that was spread later. On that day, Zhao Lingyang suddenly appeared and did not say much to anyone. She was dressed in black and had white hair, and her demonic aura soared into the sky. She only left behind a sentence, saying that she would establish a sect and establish a sect. The sect would be called Li Hen Palace, and she would be the palace master, calling herself the Demon Dust Woman. These words immediately shocked everyone present, and countless experts exclaimed in shock. Some of the disciples of the Tenju Heavenly Palace, as well as the experts of other small sects who wanted to curry favor with the overlord of the cultivators, started to make trouble. They said that Zhao Lingyang was treacherous, betraying the Tenju Heavenly Palace and establishing her own sect. She even abandoned her name and called herself the Demon Dust Woman. She was really unfilial and disloyal, and they wanted to capture her and send her to Tianju Palace to be dealt with. The battle started instantly, and Zhao Lingyang did not even have the intention to explain. Facing dozens of experts of various sects who were not much weaker than her, or even stronger than her, she sat down cross-legged in the void with a cold snort. She took out the Hateful End zither and strummed it with her knees crossed. The scene that followed could be called a nightmare. Whether it was the dozens of experts who attacked or the crowd of Starry Sky Realm experts who were watching from afar, they were all suppressed by the demonic sound of the zither in an instant. Some of them were not injured, and they quietly woke up not long after. It was as if they had just taken a trip around the 9 Serenities hell. Their whole body was weak and their mind was injured. Some of the other experts were even worse. They were injured to varying degrees and many of them were seriously injured. There were even a few who directly died. Under the terrifying illusion of the demonic sound of the zither, their divine souls were directly destroyed. When this matter spread to Tianju Palace, Tianqianzi was furious. He roared like thunder, but he did not show up. For some reason, he could not walk out of the void secret realm where Tianju Palace was located. Immediately after, before the Tenju Celestial Palace made a clear response to Zhao Lingyang's private establishment of a sect without informing them, a new unforeseen event occurred in the evening of the same day. This was the second important news from the Tenju Celestial Palace starfield, and it was related to Yi Xian's devouring doppelganger. After leaving the ancestral land of the 6th Tenju Celestial Palace that collapsed that day, the devouring doppelganger had never appeared again. This time it was almost as if he had made an agreement with Zhao Lingyang. When the former appeared in the morning, he immediately stopped lurking and appeared in the evening. What made people even more speechless was that in this second news, Yi Xian's devouring doppelganger was also not the key. When his whereabouts were discovered, he was in a shocking battle with a young expert of the human race in a desolate universe void. After that, a large number of experts in the starry sky came after hearing the news. Even the large battleship of the Tenju Celestial Palace had arrived. The battle could not continue. In the end, before the outcome of the battle could be determined, the devouring doppelganger turned around and left hurriedly, escaping far away in the blink of an eye. However, the young expert who was in a great battle with the devouring doppelganger stayed behind, and took the opportunity to announce in public that he would establish a sect from now on. The name of the sect would be Meteorite Magic Hall, and he would call himself the Hallmaster Fallen Demon Son. That's right, this young expert of the human race who called himself the Fallen Demon Son was the focus of the second important news. When he proudly announced the establishment of the Meteorite Magic Hall, all the experts of the cultivation camp who gathered around felt as if they were collectively struck by lightning. They were all stunned on the spot. Wasn't this too much of a coincidence? In the morning, Zhao Lingyang had just appeared out of nowhere and announced the establishment of the Lihan Magic Hall. In just half a day's time in the evening, a second person had jumped out immediately and called himself the Fallen Demon Son. He wanted to establish the Meteorite Magic Hall and establish a sect. This was really hard to accept. There were only a few cases of sects being established in the cultivation camp in the tens of thousands of years. Most of the experts didn't dare to do so even if they wanted to. But today, in just half a day, 2 new cultivation sects had appeared? All of this was simply more unrealistic than a dream. Chapter 3280. Translator. Transin Editor. Transinchi Demon Flag Waving Fallen Demon Child. An earth-shattering battle suddenly broke out. The young human powerhouse, who was also at the peak of the Mystic Light Realm level 9, only stayed for 5 or 6 minutes. However, the void battlefield was in chaos. A large number of starry sky masters of the cultivation camp were either injured or killed. Before the fallen devil prince left, he just took out the ancient beast flag and waved it at them a few times. However, the seemingly casual wave of the flag actually unleashed a gigantic phantom of a primordial demon god. It had a crimson body and horns, and it was incredibly terrifying. All of the starry sky powerhouses standing in a small area of space were instantly suppressed. After easily suppressing a large number of cultivators, the fallen demon child called back the ox-horn demon god, put away the beast flag, and immediately flew away. That night, the origin of the ancient beast flag was found out. Some rumors about the young human powerhouse who claimed to be the founder of the Fallen Magic Hall and the self-proclaimed fallen demon child also gradually spread. It was said that the powerful beast flag was called Qi Demon. It was indeed an ancient item that came from the desolate era. In ancient times, there was a powerful primordial ancestor spirit named Qiyu. He had the body of a human and the hooves of an ox. He had 4 eyes and 6 hands. He had a copper head and an iron forehead. His ears were like halberds. He had horns on his head. Even his voice could call the wind and summon the rain, toppling mountains and overturning seas. However, this Chi was violent in nature and loved to fight. His killing intent was very strong. Later, he was called an ancient demon god, and some people called him Chi demon. The Chi demon flag in the hands of the fallen demon child was related to him. It was said that the flag was made with Chi Yu's skin as the flag, and his bones as the flagpole. Once it was waved, there would immediately be red killing clouds surging on the flag. It was unpredictable. If it could be used to its fullest, it could even have the power to sweep the sky and earth. As for the supreme fallen devil child of the magic hall, this person had never appeared before, and no one knew his origin. It was as if he had appeared out of thin air. The 10 Ultimates' heavenly palace did their best to investigate, but they didn't find much. At present, they could confirm that this person had appeared in a certain star region in the cultivation camp a few years ago, and then disappeared completely. Who would have thought that when he reappeared a few years later, he would already be at the peak of the 9th stage of the mystic light realm? He must have had some incredible fortuitous encounters. Within a single day, the human race's cultivation camp underwent a drastic change. 2 young, monstrous heavens chosen appeared out of nowhere. They were absolutely stunning, causing countless heavens chosen of the same generation to sigh in regret. Such supreme grace was something they could only look up to. After the news spread out, the entire human race was shocked. Some people sighed. The science and technology faction had finally seen the hope of genetic evolution and seemed to be on the verge of a great rise, but it ended prematurely. The cultivation faction had just fallen into a whirlpool and seemed to be in a bad situation, but unexpectedly, 2 peerless geniuses appeared out of nowhere. This was clearly a sign of great prosperity. Indeed, the affairs of the world were unpredictable. The various things that happened made people sigh inexplicably. However, before these emotional people could calm down, similar shocking news unexpectedly came from the territory of the human race's science and technology faction's immortal dynasty. The news came from the Heavenly Wind Empire, one of the 3 great empires of the dynasty. The sources were 2 small countries under the rule of the Heavenly Wind Empire. Those 2 small countries were not eye-catching and were very ordinary. However, this time there was a huge surprise. The 2 small countries each had a peerless heavens chosen who was comparable to the demonic Dust Lady and the fallen demon's son. Moreover, the 2 of them also appeared in the distant void of the universe one after another as if they had agreed to meet in the same day. These 2 peerless heavens chosen of the human race's science and technology faction were also a man and a woman. They were also at the peak of the 9th stage of the mystic light realm. What was even more shocking was that they each had a terrifying ancient treasure in their hands. The reason why they suddenly appeared was actually the same as the demonic Dust Lady and the fallen demon's son. As soon as they appeared, they directly said that they wanted to establish a sect and proclaim themselves as sect masters. The sect that the young man in the Linghuan country founded was called the Free and Unfettered Pavilion, and he called himself the Pavilion Master, the Free and Unfettered Master. The ancient treasure that this person had in his hands was said to be called the Barrier Breaker Boots. It was said that it was owned by the ancestor Quafu in the primordial age. Legend had it that Quafu relied on the power of this boots to chase the sun. It was really a rare divine treasure. With this boots, one could travel hundreds of millions of miles in a day and cross wormholes in the universe with one's physical body. Moreover, the words barrier breaker had another deeper meaning. It meant that it could break through barriers and move unhindered. It could face all kinds of killing formations and ancient formations without any pressure. The words seal and trap were just a joke in front of this treasure. The other person was a woman. She came from the Longxia country under the rule of the Heavenly Wind Empire, and she called herself Fairy Inxia. The sect that she founded was called the Jade Dragon Island, and it was located in the depths of a vast ocean in the Longxia country. It was a mysterious island. Right now, with the appearance of the Jade Dragon Island, Fairy Inxia announced that the abandoned planet was privatized, and no experts from the outer space were allowed to enter it. Otherwise, it would be a life and death battle. In order to prove that she had the strength to sit on a planet, Fairy Inxia took out a mysterious silver chain in front of everyone. It was called the Soul Entanglement Chain. The origin of this soul entanglement chain was also very shocking. It was said that when heaven and earth first separated in ancient times, there was a spirit stone in the world, and it had existed since the chaos. After heaven and earth separated, it absorbed the essence of the sun and moon in ancient times, exploiting the energy of the chaos. Finally, it matured one day and became a spirit beast, roaming between heaven and earth. After this spirit beast died, it was buried in the south of the great desolate mountain. Its body turned into a chain, and 1,000 years later, the great desolate mountain collapsed, and the chain appeared in the world. At that time there was a natural phenomenon, and it was a natural Taoist tool. It was said that if the full power of this chain could be displayed, even deities would have nowhere to hide. This was definitely not an exaggeration. Fairy Inxia had demonstrated it in public before. When she casually tossed out the entangling soul, it instantly shone with a bright silver light, and turned into a giant silver dragon shadow that was 10,000 feet long. Its ancient aura covered the sky and earth, and it actually cut a 1,000-meter-long planetary-level battleship into two in the blink of an eye, as if it was cutting tofu with steel wires. This scene shocked everyone so much that they gasped. Even when Fairy Inxia withdrew the soul entanglement chain and turned to leave, there were still many starry sky powerhouses who had cold sweat on their backs. This chain's entanglement power was already so terrifying. If it could be fully displayed, its power could be imagined. In a short 2 to 3 days, the two camps of the human race had blossomed one after another. The younger generation was peerless, and two monstrous geniuses had appeared out of nowhere. Not only was the human race of the third universe greatly shocked and unable to recover for a long time, even the various races of the Federation of the Second Universe and the Overlord of the First Universe, the Tianji clan, were stirred because of this. The chaos of the three great universes was imminent, but the human race suddenly erupted at such a time. For peerless geniuses that were hard to come by in tens of thousands of years had appeared in succession. Thinking about it carefully, it was truly indescribable. Chapter 3281. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. The great competition is coming in just 3 days. The entire third universe's human race was in turmoil, and the changes were too shocking. Although 4 of these peerless geniuses, who were said to only appear once every 10,000 years, appeared out of nowhere, they had not grown up yet. They were only at the 9th level of the mystic light realm. Normally, even if the 4 of them joined forces, they would not be able to affect the so-called general trend. But now it was different. The situation in the 3 universes was tense, and a full-scale war could break out at any time. At this time, 4 peerless geniuses of the human race had suddenly appeared, and they had even fought to be the first to descend from the sky in just 3 days. There was something strange about this matter, and it was hard not to think about it. Perhaps once a full-scale war broke out, with the current cultivation level of these 4 peerless geniuses, they were far from being able to affect the general trend of the war. They would not be able to shake it at all. However, they had suddenly appeared at such a sensitive time. From a certain point of view, it was extremely likely that it was related to the destiny of this shocking battle. If there really was a heavenly Tao looking down on all living beings, then their appearance was undoubtedly a manifestation of the blessing of the heavenly Tao. Although this speculation was groundless, it could not help but make people think more about it. The situation in the 3 universes, which was originally extremely tense, instantly eased up. The overlord of the first universe, the Tianji clan, who was secretly ready to make a move, remained silent and did not have any obvious reaction. The various races of the Federation in the second universe were obviously much quieter. The higher-ups of the powerful races such as the Inji clan, who had been following up and pressuring the headquarters of the Federation, were temporarily silent. They wanted to see how the situation would develop before making a move. Unfortunately, although the pressure from the outside world had temporarily eased, the situation in the third universe, which was controlled by the human race, was still tense. It was even more serious, and the signs of impending chaos were more obvious. Although the 4 peerless geniuses who appeared this time belonged to the human race, they did not care about the 2 camps that controlled the general trend of the human race. The technology camp was better. Although Fairy Inxia and Xiaoyaozi did not care about the dynasty, at least there was no conflict. However, the cultivation camp was not so comfortable. The fallen demon sun and the demon dust woman were more ruthless than the other. As soon as they appeared, they killed many starry sky masters of the cultivation camp. Except for some second-tier sects and forces, even the Tenju Heavenly Palace, the overlord of the cultivation camp, was included. A total of more than a dozen disciples of the heavenly palace died. Furthermore, Witch-Dust Maiden Zhao Lingyang was the princess of the 6th palace of the 10 ultimates. This was completely the rhythm of betraying the sect. No matter how good the tempers of the 10 ultimates' heavenly palace's higher-ups were, they still couldn't tolerate this. As a result, the cultivators were the first to fall into chaos. With the Tenju Celestial Palace as the leader, the experts from various sects formed an army and launched a comprehensive search for Devil Dust Maiden and the fallen demon's son. Of course, Yixian's devouring avatar was also one of the targets along the way, as well as the undying Dark Phoenix. A fierce battle quickly broke out. There were casualties on both sides. The Devil Dust Maiden, the fallen demon's son, and the devouring avatar were all found on the same day. Facing the joint attack of many experts from the cultivation camp, although the 3 of them were slightly injured, they all escaped safely in the end. In this battle, the Devil Dust Maiden and the fallen demon's son still had their demonic flames, but what was more shocking was Yixian's devouring avatar. At this time, the outside world suddenly realized that his cultivation was only at the peak of the 9th level of the Origin Realm, which was 2 whole realms lower than the fallen demon's son, who was at the peak of the 9th level of the Mystic Light Realm. There was also the 10th level of the Grotto Heaven between them. However, on the evening when the fallen demon's son appeared 2 days ago, the 2 of them clearly fought for a long time in a remote galaxy. The devouring avatar, who was only at the 9th level of the Origin Realm, fought the fallen demon's son, who was at the 9th level of the Mystic Light Realm, alone, and did not fall into a disadvantage at all. In the end, he even calmly escaped, as if he had entered a place where no one could stop him. This was simply illogical, and it was hard to accept. The devouring avatar's true background was still a huge question mark. Whether it was the higher-ups of the cultivation camp or the technological camp, none of them could confirm whether it was Tian Xianzi's avatar or Prince Xian's avatar. Compared to the fallen demon's son and the Devil Dust Maiden's demonic flames, the devouring avatar was more mysterious. Its entire body exuded a slippery aura, making it hard for others to see through. Because of this, some people boldly guessed that he must have hidden his cultivation. Otherwise, how monstrous would it be to be able to fight against a 9th-level Mystic Light Realm cultivator without falling into a disadvantage when he was only at the 9th level of the Origin Realm? It would not be an exaggeration to say that this was unprecedented, and it was rare to see such a person in hundreds of millions of years. In comparison, the speculation that the devouring avatar had hidden his cultivation was more reasonable and believable. At the very least, it was not hard to accept. Unfortunately, voices of doubt about this theory soon appeared. Although they could not be completely sure that the speculation was not true, they could basically overturn it. This was because on that day, the devouring avatar faced the joint attack of the various sects of the cultivation camp and fought to the death alone. He used all kinds of amazing divine abilities to the extreme, but even when he was seriously injured and almost died in the end, the combat power he displayed was still only at the 9th level of the Origin Realm. If he was not lucky enough to escape, the final result would definitely be that he died at the hands of a certain almighty figure of the Tenju Celestial Palace. At such a critical moment of life and death, who would grit their teeth and continue to hide their cultivation? It could not stand up to scrutiny at all. After realizing this, the entire human race of the 3rd universe was once again in an uproar. It turned out that the existence whose avatar they did not know was the real terrifying monstrous existence. With a gap of 2 realms, he was able to fight the fallen demon's son without falling into a disadvantage. This was simply infuriating. The subsequent search efforts of the various sects of the cultivation camp increased substantially. The focus had shifted from the fallen demon's son and the Demon Dust Maiden to Yixian's devouring avatar, which became the main target, instantly completing the counterattack. In this regard, the immortal dynasty of the science camp did not have any reaction. Although the other party was certainly possible to be the Longxian avatar of the dynasty, before this matter was confirmed, the dynasty would not break out into a conflict with the Tenju Celestial Palace at such a sensitive time for uncertain reasons. The chaos of the 3 universes was gradually appearing. The human race of the 3rd universe must not have internal strife. Although the dissatisfaction and resentment of the 2 camps were very strong, they tacitly chose to restrain themselves. However, on the evening of the same day this news was spread by the cultivation camp, In the depths of the outer palace of the inner city of the immortal star imperial capital, the figures of the Imperial Preceptor d'Air and the Immortal Emperor appeared at the peak of the Imperial Preceptor Hall at the same time. They looked up at the night sky and whispered to each other. No one knew what they were talking about. Even the Imperial Elders of the Imperial Preceptor Hall could not easily try to eavesdrop on the contents of their conversation. The Immortal Emperor was one thing, but the key was the Imperial Preceptor d'Air. Even they were extremely afraid of him. However, when the secret conversation ended and the Immortal Emperor turned to leave, the Imperial Preceptor d'Air suddenly laughed cheerfully. His voice was slightly louder and could be vaguely heard when the night wind blew. Ha ha ha! In addition to the rascal who was just chased away in just 3 days, 4 more test seeds that have stepped onto the right track have appeared out of nowhere. The system seed source that was distributed back then could be said to be a huge amount. At least it was not wasted. Chapter 3282. Chapter 3282. Chapter 328. Origin. On the other side, half of the void of the third universe controlled by the self-cultivator camp fell into chaos because of the ongoing search. On the other side, the immortal dynasty territory of the human race wasn't peaceful either. The Heavenly War Empire, one of the 3 empires under the rule of the dynasty, abandoned the entire imperial planet where the capital was located. In one night, the entire empire's government and high-ranking officials were displaced. This was a matter of great importance, so the dynasty naturally couldn't ignore it. 5 days had passed, and the army that had departed from the imperial capital Heaven Battle Planet had basically all arrived at the administrative planets where they had temporarily settled down. The 2 fleets from the imperial capital Immortal Star were also on their way and would arrive in a few days. The reason why there were 2 fleets was because the Federation's Overwatch Council was also alarmed this time. In addition to the immortal army sent by the dynasty, the Wanluo Federation's Overwatch Council's Sanlon fleet also mobilized a large-scale fleet on the same day. After all, the sudden appearance of such a terrifying zombie poison in the human territory was no small matter. If something went wrong, it would affect the entire third universe and even spread to the wormhole second universe. How could the Federation's Overwatch Council just sit and watch? Although the fleet was still on the way and hadn't arrived yet, as the news spread from the dynasty's main network on the immortal planet, the large and small countries and countless people in the Heavenly War Empire's vast starfield were finally comforted and didn't feel so uneasy anymore. Immediately, the Heavenly War Emperor, who had safely arrived at the Heavenly War Empire's capital, immediately issued an imperial order. The entire Heavenly War Empire's vassal countries under its rule were under full martial law from this moment onwards. All battleships and armaments were activated. The battle to reclaim the imperial planet was about to begin. In addition to this, there was also a military fleet that was responsible for monitoring the front lines that departed from the Heavenly War Planet in the evening and headed towards the Heavenly War Planet. After arriving, this fleet would be stationed in the Heavenly War Starfield and investigate the changes in the Imperial Planet 24/7. At the same time, in the interior of the Heavenly War Planet, Tuoba Linfeng, Gong Yangji, and Yuan Zhua, the 3 great zombie kings, led the entire universe's zombie army from the Heaven Battle Empire's capital, sweeping through everything in their path. In the past 5 days, they had already swept through half of the Heaven Battle Planet's interior, trampling over almost 1,000 cities of the Heaven Battle Planet. At this point, the entire zombie army had reached a small success. The number of zombies in the universe was like a rolling snowball, reaching a terrifying number of tens of millions. However, all of this was far from over. More than half of the Emperor Star's territory had yet to be swept away. There were still some Imperial citizens and Star warriors lingering in these cities. In the eyes of Tuoba Linfeng and the other 2 zombie kings, these humans were the fresh blood of the zombie army. They were precious and could not be let go of so easily. In these 5 days, Tuoba Linfeng and the other 2 zombie kings' strength had increased to a certain extent. They had all made breakthroughs from the 9th realm late-stage origin to the 10th realm early-stage grotto heaven. Among them, Tuoba Linfeng was at level 3 grotto heaven, Gong Yangji was at level 2 grotto heaven, and Yuan Zhua was the weakest, but he had also reached level 1 grotto heaven. Other than that, the entire zombie army had also undergone huge changes. The evolution of the universe's zombies seemed to be on the fast track. Every day, there would be a large number of universe's zombies undergoing a second or even third evolution. There were also all kinds of new abilities that appeared. The power system of the universe's zombies was slowly taking shape. Among them, there were even some stronger zombies that gradually gained the ability to think. This was clearly a sign that a new consciousness was sprouting, and there would be a time when they would once again give birth to sentience. Regarding all of this, Yi Xian was completely oblivious. 5 days had passed, and he was still quietly hibernating in the depths of the Heaven Battle Empire's capital, cultivating in seclusion. However, it was clear that he was nearing the end. The devouring system's speed of absorbing the star core's energy was extremely extraordinary. As early as 2 days ago, it had already consumed all of the star core's energy provided by Yi Xian. The reason why he hadn't finished his seclusion was only because the subsequent refinement had delayed the progress. The massive amount of star core's energy was continuously being poured into Yi Xian's body by the devouring system. In addition to the various heavenly materials and earthly treasures that he had previously refined, these two types of energy gathered together and continuously tempered and strengthened every single cell of Yi Xian's body. Every minute, every second, Yi Xian's body's vitality was slowly and endlessly rising. The meridians and organs in his body were undergoing earth-shaking changes. Faintly, they were blooming with a faint auspicious brilliance, triggering a resonance with his body. From time to time, the roars of dragons and tigers could be heard. If it wasn't for the fact that he had activated the star core in his brain to perfectly activate the secret spiritual technique and instructed the devouring system to maintain it for him, once the roars of dragons and tigers and the rumbling of his vitality were heard, it would be useless even if he was hibernating in the depths of the earth vein. He would most likely be exposed. Another day passed in the blink of an eye. All of the star core's energy and heavenly materials and earthly treasures that had been poured into Yi Xian's body were finally exhausted, leaving nothing behind. In the next instant, a stream of blood-red liquid was poured into Yi Xian's body at the right time and instantly spread out, turning into a scorching energy river that surged like a roaring mountain torrent. It violently flushed and stimulated every single cell of Yi Xian's body, both inside and outside. This was the extremely rare level 9 gene cultivation fluid that the experts of the human race's science and technology faction couldn't get their hands on even if they wanted to. It was suitable for experts who had reached the peak of level 9 black hole. It was used to break through the shackles of the physical body and sever the bloodline gene chains, thereby allowing them to step into the starting point in one fell swoop. Yi Xian had already prepared this level 9 liquid before he went into seclusion and threw it to the devouring system. He also instructed the system to immediately inject the level 9 liquid into the system, if his body's vital energy and blood had already reached the 9th level of the black hole by the time his cultivation ended. At this moment, as the terrifying energy contained in the level 9 gene cultivation fluid instantly spread throughout his body, Yi Xian's entire body was completely tense. Although this method of breaking through the shackles of the physical body cells and severing the bloodline gene chains was direct and effective, it was too violent. His entire body seemed to have completely collapsed in an instant. Even the first cell was rioting, which was really uncomfortable. Fortunately, it didn't take long. In less than an hour, everything was over. At this moment, Yi Xian, who had been meditating like an old monk for 6 whole days, suddenly opened his eyes. 2 dazzling beams of light shot out from the bottom of his eyes and disappeared in a flash. Immediately after that, the familiar sound of the system notification rang in his head. Ding! Congratulations to the host. The realm of your physical body's vitality has increased. Current realm. Level 8 Black Hole Realm. Ding! Congratulations to the host. Ding! Congratulations to the host. The realm of your physical body's vitality has increased. Current realm. Level 1 Origin Realm. The system notification rang 3 times in a row. Each time it rang, it represented a small breakthrough, which meant that Yi Xian's physical body's vitality had increased tremendously. Chapter 3283. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. The opportunity of the immortal star brain Yi Xian lowered his head and glanced at the layer of black scabs covering the surface of his body. Even he found it a little unbelievable. It would be fine if this situation happened in the early stage of body tempering, but now that he had already reached the black hole realm, the evolution of his body was definitely not low, and yet he was still able to force out so many filthy impurities from his body. It was enough to show how terrifying the transformation of his body after this tempering was. This was definitely the rhythm of risking his life. Today Yi Xian felt like he had been reborn. His entire body was shining brightly, and it was clear that his body was close to perfection, as if he was about to reach the legendary innate saint body that was untainted by filth. He even suspected that there was an ancient divine dragon hibernating in his body. His body's qi and blood were surging like a roaring river. Although Yi Xian had only broken through 3 small levels in terms of his physical body's qi and blood realm, the increase in his overall combat strength was far from that simple. The reason was very simple. With the improvement of his qi and blood realm, the various bloodlines in his body, such as the ancient demonic dragon, had also been integrated into his body. In this case, the power of his various bloodlines, such as the demonic dragon's roar and the demonic soul pupil, would naturally increase along with it. In addition, with the great improvement of his cultivation, Yi Xian's Rai Di seal, Shenong cauldron, and other treasures would also be activated more powerful, including the battle weapon Withered Demon Blood Blade and the battle armor Indestructible Glass Armor. After all, they were quasi-starry sky grade treasures, and had the unique attribute of self-growth. His black hole realm cultivation was still far from being able to activate their power to the extreme. However, although Yi Xian had broken through 3 small realms, and his qi and blood realm had broken through to the 9th great realm, the origin 1st grade, his chances of killing the 3 zombie kings, including Tuoba Linfeng and Gong Yangji, were still not high, without using the Rai Di seal and other supreme treasures and bloodline abilities such as the Fallen Sky Bow. Putting aside the few precious treasures and the most powerful bloodline ability, although he still had many powerful methods, so that his overall combat strength was far beyond his cultivation level, he was basically unafraid of those in the same realm. In a one-on-one battle he could sweep through them. Even if it was 1 against 3, he still had the possibility of winning. Tuoba Linfeng and the other 2 zombie kings were already at the late stage of the origin realm. Now that 6 days had passed, and with the rapid mutation and evolution speed of the universe zombies, it was very likely that the 3 of them had broken through the origin realm and stepped into the Grotto Heaven realm. If it was a one-on-one battle, with Yi Xian's abnormal combat strength, he would not be afraid of fighting across realms. However, there were clearly 3 opponents this time, and they were extremely cautious, so it was unlikely that they would be separated easily. If the 3 of them had already stepped into the Grotto Heaven realm, Yi Xian would have no chance of winning against 3 opponents across realms. Right now, I can only try my luck and wait for one of them to be separated before I make my move. Thinking of this, Yi Xian felt depressed and sighed faintly. Besides, I have to deal with the issue of the level 10 liquid immediately. Now that I have stepped into the origin 1st grade, if I still don't find the level 10 liquid when I reach the origin 9th grade, I will face the dilemma of having my path cut off again. If there is no other way, I will have to make a trip to the Tuoba family. After making the decision, Yi Xian left the depths of the ley lines and quietly returned to the surface. The mental power of the source nucleus in his brain continued to be supplied, maintaining the perfect vibration of the secret spiritual technique, and concealing all auras. However, he soon found that this was completely unnecessary. The entire inner city of the imperial capital was lifeless. Not only were there no living people, but there were also no universe zombies. What entered his eyes was a scene of ruins and broken tiles, and the ground was full of broken limbs and rotten flesh. It was obvious that the zombie army had left. Just as Yi Xian was stunned by the unexpected disappearance of the zombie army, a familiar system prompt suddenly sounded in his mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host. You have discovered a high-level Starry Sky super brain. It is mature and can be devoured. Do you want to capture it immediately? High-level mature Starry Sky super brain? Could it be the intelligence center of the Heavenly War Empire's level 2 star network? The surprise came too quickly. Yi Xian was shocked on the spot, and then he was ecstatic. The depression he had before was swept away in an instant. There were only 3 level 2 star networks under the command of the entire Undying Dynasty, and they were located in the imperial capital of the 3 great empires. Normally, Yi Xian wouldn't have had the opportunity to get close to them and covet them. He hadn't expected to encounter such a good thing today. A meat pie had fallen from the sky and landed directly on his head. Starry Sky superbrains were extremely rare, and high-level ones were even rarer. Apart from the 3 starry sky superbrains that maintained the operation of the level 2 star networks in the 3 great empires, there were definitely no more than 2 starry sky superbrains in the entire Undying Dynasty. Although there was a starry sky superbrain in the countless administrative planets of the big and small countries below the 3 great empires that acted as the intelligence center of the star network, they were basically all normal-grade starry sky superbrains of different grades, and there were very few mature starry sky superbrains. Unfortunately, the chances of a starry sky superbrain evolving were very slim. A mature normal-grade starry sky superbrain might not become a mature starry sky superbrain even after tens of thousands of years. It was even less of an extravagant hope for a starry sky superbrain to evolve. Therefore, any high-level starry sky superbrain was something that one could only come across by chance, and was extremely precious. Starry sky superbrains could devour each other to accelerate their own evolution. However, for the immortal starry sky superbrain in Yixian's possession that had just entered the maturation stage, immortal starry sky superbrain avoided it like the plague. It couldn't devour normal-grade starry sky superbrains even if it wanted to. Only a high-level mature starry sky superbrain like this was absolutely a great supplement. If he didn't devour it, he would regret it for life. With that in mind, Yixian didn't hesitate anymore. He immediately ordered the system to activate the devouring ability and capture it with all his might. Of course, he could actually search for it himself. After all, the entire imperial capital's inner city was empty. It wouldn't matter what he did. However, that was the center of the Heavenly Battle Empire's level 2 star network after all. It was impossible for it not to have any defenses, especially when the entire imperial capital was empty except for this high-level starry sky superbrain that was accidentally left behind. Now that time was of the essence, there was really no need to take this risk. Feeling slightly anxious, Yixian waited for less than a minute before the system notification rang in his mind again. Ding! Congratulations to the host. You have obtained a mature high-level starry sky superbrain. Do you want to activate the devouring ability immediately? Success! Yixian let out a long sigh of relief and immediately gave an affirmative reply. He was even more excited now. Not long after, when this mature high-level starry sky superbrain's mass was completely digested, Yixian's personal starry sky communication system would most likely be upgraded again. When that time came, its power would be even more powerful, and the chances of him finding the rest of the dimension void fragment technique would be greatly increased. It could be said that a slight change in one part could affect the situation as a whole. The significance of this was just too great. Rumble! Before Yixian could calm his surging emotions, the ground beneath his feet suddenly shook violently. A thunderous boom suddenly exploded in the sky above his head. The sound was terrifying. Chapter 3284. Disaster. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless fantasy translation in the vast space outside the atmosphere of the Heaven Battle Planet. For fortresses with a diameter of 10,000 meters hovered silently in the void around the Heaven Battle Planet. The experts in the 4 fortresses were the last batch of Imperial Palace Guards that had retreated just before the Imperial capital's inner city fell. The reason why they stayed here was to monitor the situation of the Imperial capital's Heaven Battle Planet. This was an order given by Emperor Tian Battle himself. 6 days had passed, and the Heaven Battle Planet had not moved at all. Those space zombies had not even tried to attack the star defense array set up in the atmosphere in the surrounding void. The entire planet's defensive array had been fully activated for several days now. Before Emperor Heavenly Battle left, he had set the self-activation time in mode. Right now, the entire Heaven Battle Planet was like a giant planet cage. Those outside couldn't enter, and those inside couldn't leave. Unless a sea of battleships bombarded the star defense array with thousands of cannons at the same time, the star defense array's countless void nodes would be completely exhausted. Or they could obtain the defense array token from Emperor Tian Battle. Of course, it was also possible to destroy the star brain of the Imperial capital's level 2 star network, which was located in one of the most important places in the Imperial capital's inner city. Unfortunately, none of the above 3 methods were realistic. The defense array token had been taken away long ago, and the star brain was protected by powerful restrictions and was extremely secretive, so it was still safe. It was precisely because of this that the Imperial Palace's Imperial Guards who were stationed in the 4 fortresses did not feel the slightest sense of crisis. The army from the Imperial capital's Immortal Star would arrive soon. At that time, Imperial Emperor Tianzhan would also arrive. Presumably, it would not be long before the Imperial Star was restored. Unfortunately, the unforeseen event still happened unexpectedly. Rumble. Boom. In the void up ahead, the thick layer of atmosphere that enveloped the entire Imperial Star suddenly surged without any warning. Terrifying thunderous booms rang out continuously as countless specks of light flickered in and out of existence in the void around the Imperial Star, densely packed together. These motes of light were the foundation of the Heaven Battle Planet's defensive array formation. They were densely distributed throughout the Imperial Planet's atmosphere. And now they suddenly flickered. This was clearly a sign that there was a problem with the defensive array formation, and that it was about to collapse. All the Imperial Palace guards in the 4 fortresses were dumbfounded by this scene. They were shocked to the point of despair, and exclamations of shock rang out one after another. Heavens, what happened? This is impossible. How could those damn universe zombies be so powerful? He was actually able to blast open the defensive formation from the inside. Report it immediately. Something big is going to happen. At the same time, in the atmosphere, in the inner city of the Heaven Battle Empire, Yi Xian's heart was at a loss as he subconsciously raised his head to look at the sky. Then, as a thought flashed through his mind, the shock that had just appeared on his face instantly turned into a sluggish expression. Disaster. It was a sign that the star defense array outside of the atmosphere was about to be completely paralyzed. And this was related to Yi Xian. He was the instigator. Previously, he was too excited and didn't think too much. He actually acted impulsively and directly swallowed the central star brain of the Heaven Battle Planet's Level 2 star network. With the central intelligent core gone, the Heaven Battle Planet's Level 2 star network was completely destroyed. How could the star defense array still function? Since the star defense array has been activated, it means that the universe zombie army hasn't left yet. The Empire's official purpose of activating the star defense array is to turn the Imperial planet into a cage. At least, it can cut off the possibility of the universe zombie army rushing out of the atmosphere and entering the universe for a short period of time. Yi Xian muttered to himself. His face was as gloomy as water, revealing a bit of annoyance. At this time he realized that he had made a big mistake. If this caused the undying poison to spread to the void outside of the Heaven Battle Planet and eventually spread to the entire third universe, his sin would be too great. This matter concerned the survival of the entire human race, and he would be a sinner for all eternity. Fortunately, there is still a chance to remedy this situation. As long as the 3 zombie kings, Tuoba Linfeng, Gong Yangji, and Yuan Zhuo are killed, the rest of the universe zombies won't be a threat no matter how many there are. After all, except for the 3 zombie kings, the rest of the zombies are infected with a poison that is not the original source. Whether it is the speed of evolution or the height that they can reach, it is destined that they will be extremely limited. Thinking of this, Yi Xian's eyes lit up. Without hesitation, he waved his hand and summoned the Dongshu shuttle. He stepped into the shuttle, activated the concealment array, and rushed out like a bolt of lightning. With this unexpected situation, Yi Xian had no time to think about anything else. The only thing in his mind was to kill the 3 zombie kings as soon as possible. Otherwise, if they took the opportunity to slip away and escape from the Heaven Battle Planet, he would be powerless to chase after them in the boundless void of the universe. However, he still didn't plan to use the Rai seal and the fallen sky bow. At this moment, he summoned the Dongshu shuttle not only to find the target as soon as possible in this vast Heaven Battle continent. Once the target appeared, Yi Xian would immediately activate the battleship killing system, obtained after the 7th fusion of the Dongshu shuttle. After the last fusion, Yi Xian's battle armors and battleships had all jumped to the quasi-starry sky level. He had tested the power of the battle armors and was extremely satisfied. Only the battleship Dongshu shuttle's battleship killing system had not been activated yet. Today he could use Tuoba Linfeng and his zombie army to test its power. After an hour, another city appeared on the ground in front of him. Yi Xian had searched all the way and found more than 100 cities. Without exception, all of them had turned into purgatory demonic lands similar to the Heaven Battle Emperor's capital. At first, Yi Xian was furious, but now he seemed to be a little numb, but the killing intent in his heart became more and more intense. After a while, As the Dongshu shuttle whistled over the city at a low altitude, Yixian immediately found something unusual. Although the scene in the city below was exactly the same as what he had seen before, the bloodstains on the ground were clearly different. They were not dry yet, which meant that the zombie army was in front of him and had finally appeared. Yixian's heart beat wildly. Without hesitation, he immediately issued an order to the system and immediately activated the battleship killing system of the Dongshu shuttle. It was fully charged and ready to be activated. Buzz buzz. The next moment, a faint trembling buzzing sound rang out. The Dongshu shuttle's concealment array was automatically removed, and the hull of the shuttle was revealed. Countless small light spots of different shapes flashed instantly, covering the entire surface of the hull, dazzling everyone. After the seventh fusion of the Dongshu shuttle, the Grand Five Elements Annihilation Array disk had turned into a layer of obscure array patterns that covered the entire shuttle. Now, the array patterns engraved on every part of the Dongshu shuttle could be said to be incomparably complicated. Layer after layer, they were so densely packed that they made one dizzy when looking at them carefully. Chapter 3285. Five Elements Annihilation Hodgepodge. As the killing system of the Void Hole shuttle was fully activated and immediately began to store up energy at full capacity, Yixian's originally rather excited mood instantly surged. He had a burning anticipation for what he would soon witness with his own eyes. The Great Five Elements Annihilation Formation Disc was an offensive magical weapon in the form of a formation. It was a miniature, portable killing formation. All the formation patterns and talismans were refined and solidified into the formation disc. This kind of formation disc was very rare even in the cultivation camp, and high-grade ones were even rarer. Once this formation disc was activated, the power of the Annihilation Formation Disc would be able to overturn the heavens and earth in an instant. It could convert any energy into 5 types of annihilation lightning, and it could be divided and combined. If it was divided, it could penetrate the earth's crust and collapse mountains. If it was combined, it could bury an area and annihilate the void. The 5 types of annihilation lightning could be divided and combined in countless combinations, and each combination gave rise to a different power of pure annihilation lightning. It could be said that a slight move in one part could affect the whole body, and its power was unpredictable. Just thinking about the crushing power of this majestic killing formation made one unable to calm down. It would definitely be a spectacular sight, and Yixian could not wait any longer. Not long after, the shadow of the universe's zombie army finally appeared at the end of the ground in front of them. Yixian was shocked because there were just too many zombies. They were densely spread out, covering a large area of land. There were at least 10 million of them. What surprised him even more was that not only did the universe's zombie population increase rapidly, but their evolution speed was also extremely shocking. Yixian casually glanced around and saw that on the bodies of a large number of universe's zombies, there were clearly signs of evolution that did not belong to humans. Some grew scales, sharp horns, fleshy wings, and claws. There were also some that were developing into various types of ferocious beasts. There were even some zombies that were clearly in the process of becoming giant. In just a few days, they had already grown to a height of a zhang. If they were allowed to continue evolving, this type of zombie would most likely become a mountain-like giant or giant beast. As for Tuoba Linfeng, Gong Yangji, and Yuan Zhua, as the 3 supreme zombie kings of the entire zombie army, their evolution speed was obviously faster. Yixian saw the figures of these 3 guys at a glance. The other zombies were running on the ground, but they were flying at a low altitude above the army. In just a short 6 days, these 3 guys really broke through to the Heavenly Passage realm. The most powerful one, Tuoba Linfeng, had even entered the middle stage of the Heavenly Passage realm. This kind of strength improvement speed was too shocking, and even Yixian could not compare. A heavy pressure instantly enveloped his heart. Immediately activate the battleship's killing array. After the shock, Yixian's face was gloomy to the extreme. He sneered and ordered the Devouring system to attack. Array mode. Close range sealing array style killing array. Attack mode. Cover the entire area indiscriminately and kill. Accurately lock onto the target. The 3 zombie kings. The Dongshu shuttle's battleship's killing array was integrated with the Great 5 Elements Extermination Array. There were 2 types of array mode: long-range shooting and killing mode and close-range sealing array-style killing mode. The former was suitable for long-range bombardment. The array glyphs engraved on the surface of the shuttle would not reveal a killing array. After the array glyphs transformed the 5 elements extermination array, it would shoot out in the form of cannons. The latter was different. It was suitable for close-range sealing array. After the array glyphs were activated, it would condense the 5 elements array base, which would cross the sky and seal off a large area of space. All the subsequent attacks would be launched in this sealed area. There were also 2 types of attack mode. No matter which array mode it was, it could launch an indiscriminately and kill the entire area. It could also choose to lock onto the target and launch a precise attack. Could even do both. While it was launching an indiscriminately and killing the entire area, it could focus on 1 or more targets and precisely lock onto the target. Yi Xian's choice was to launch an indiscriminately and precisely lock onto the 3 zombie kings while launching an indiscriminately close-range sealing array style killing the entire area. Wang. At this moment, following his order, the Dongshu shuttle, which had been flying at top speed all along, arrived at the sky above the zombie army. The 3 zombie kings who were flying at a low altitude were right below them. Right at this moment, along with a series of extreme buzzing sounds, the hull of the Dongshu shuttle suddenly shone brightly. Countless array glyphs representing the profound meanings of the 5 elements of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth were densely packed. They emitted a blazing light, and at an extremely fast speed, they shot out in all directions of the shuttle. Countless rune energy rays of different colors intertwined like shuttles, and in the blink of an eye, a large area of space was enveloped. It was as if a giant net of light energy had spread out in the sky, replacing the vault of heaven and earth. It was colorful and dazzling. Rumble! A terrifying roar soon exploded, and 5 energy light pillars of different colors condensed around the giant net of light energy. They each represented the power of the 5 elements, and they emitted an invisible pressure, towering in the sky and suppressing the entire area. Since then, a large area of land and space with a radius of 100 miles under the giant net of light energy was finally completely sealed off. Although there were still a large number of cosmic zombies that were blocked outside the killing array, it was no longer important. At least, none of the 3 zombie kings had escaped, and they were all trapped in the killing array. Immediately after, a magnificent slaughter finally began like a raging wildfire. Rumble! Boom! Kacha! At the edge of the killing array, the 5 energy light pillars of the 5 elements that towered in the sky like pillars of heaven instantly shone brightly. Streaks of killing energy of different colors and different power surged out continuously like a huge river, enveloping the sky and earth with a terrifying aura that could destroy the heaven and earth, and crashed down with a rumbling sound. In the blink of an eye, the killing array within a radius of 100 miles was completely covered. Not only did these killing energies have different attributes and powers, but even the forms they manifested were also varied. There were round thunderballs of various sizes, agile and drifting lightning bolts, and even killing weapons such as magic treasures and flying swords, as well as all kinds of ferocious beasts with monstrous expressions. Their forms were different, and their attacking methods were naturally different. At this moment they were pouring down from all directions at the same time, which was simply stunning. They simply didn't know how to deal with it. In the face of all this, the 3 zombie kings who were looking up from a low altitude were instantly dumbfounded. Their entire bodies were stunned. This kind of attack method was so complicated that it made one's hair stand on end, and the number of attacks was so terrifying that it made one feel despair. It was simply unheard of. The 3 zombie kings' faces were full of sluggishness, and they suddenly felt as if they were in a mess in the wind. Boom! Screech! Rumble! Before they could react, the overwhelming mess that poured down had already descended with a loud bang. The sound of explosions resounded endlessly, and the zombie army was instantly thrown into chaos. Miserable howls, violent howls, and angry roars intertwined. Broken limbs, rotten flesh, blood, and venom flew everywhere. Chapter 3286. Killing altogether. The power of this array was indeed extraordinary, worthy of its name of extermination. Everything had just begun. Even Yi Xian, who had been looking forward to it for a long time, was not ready to seriously appreciate it. The killing on the ground below had already entered into a tragic mode like a raging fire. Facing all this, Yi Xian was completely dumbfounded, and the shock in his heart couldn't be any greater. From the beginning of the array until now, it had only been a few breaths, but the power of this array had far exceeded his original expectations. He was so satisfied it was simply a pleasant surprise. The only thing that was a little imperfect was that the various killing energy bodies roaring out from the 5 pillars were too heterogeneous. Their forms were really speechless. Wind, rain, thunder, lightning, swords, spears, birds, beasts. In short, there were all kinds of things. Moreover, they were all mixed together and blasted out at the same time. The momentum was very strong, but the key was that it was too chaotic. It made people inexplicably think of a pot of boiling hot mess roaring out from the top. At this moment, the 3 zombie kings at low altitude below must have felt the same way. As the large area within 100 miles of the killing array completely exploded, broken limbs and rotten flesh splashed out endlessly. The 3 zombie kings who finally came back to their senses were instantly enraged. Each of them flew into a rage. The strongest one, Tuoba Linfeng, even opened his mouth and howled like a wolf. This was clearly the rhythm of being mad, close to the rhythm of a berserk. Roar! Screech! Oh! At the same time as roaring, the 3 zombie kings simultaneously urged the zombie energy in their body, unleashing their most powerful attacks. In an instant, their aura burst out, and an invisible tyrannical aura rushed out. Rumble! The inheritance of the second zombie king, Gong Yangji, was called the Ghost Refining Frenzy Technique, and its power was quite terrifying. This technique came with a palm technique called the Purgatory Thunder Palm, which could release zombie thunder and even zombie lightning with a raise of the hand, which was shocking. At this moment, under the rage, a dense grayish-black zombie instantly roared out from his body. This corpse fiend not only had a large amount of corpse lightning flashing incessantly within it, but it was also accompanied by a series of grayish-black corpse thunders, which covered a large area of 10,000 meters in circumference. With a furious roar, it leaped into the air and pounced toward the Dongshu shuttle high in the sky. Although Corpse Elder III, Yuan Zhua, did not obtain the Desolate Era cultivation method and only had an incomplete bloodline ability, this demonic path ability was clearly extraordinary. At this moment, as he shot up into the sky with a mad howl, the majestic corpse energy in his body instantly transformed into a strange netherworld corpse flame. Amidst the grayish-black, there was a tinge of green that made Yuan Zhua's face, which had already become hideous due to his corpse transformation, look like a demon from hell, extremely terrifying. The 2 little brothers had already made their move, but as the corpse boss, Tuoba Linfeng, fell behind. Only when Gong Yangji and Yuan Zhua both soared into the air did he finally shut his mouth. No matter what, at least he was able to vent the resentment that was surging in his chest through his rotten throat by howling like a mad wolf. Xiu! Taking a deep breath, Tuoba Linfeng suddenly waved his hand, and a faint light rushed out from between his eyebrows. In less than half a breath, it had already transformed into a mountain-like demonic blade that hovered endlessly above his head. Blood-green markings appeared on the gray body of the devil's saber, and it was extremely evil and filthy. It emanated a sort of evil aura that shook the soul. At the instant one looked at it, it actually caused one to have the misconception that a strand of brutal and monstrous invisible devil flames was surging and surging towards them. This demonic blade was actually condensed from an incomplete divine ability called Demonic Flame Space Flash/. Once it was used, the corpse energy in the body would instantly condense and take form. Its power was terrifying and evil, and it could even absorb the vitality, blood, and spirit of the opponent. It could be called a corpse secret technique. Amongst the 3 corpse kings, only Tuoba Linfeng's blood-green devil saber caused Yixin to feel a sense of trepidation. It even caused him to suspect that in the primordial era countless years ago, the primordial era creature that left behind this bloodline ability really had a real devil saber in his hands. The demonic blade in front of him was already terrifying. Even Yixian's quasi-starry sky treasure weapon, the withered demon bloodblade, was slightly inferior. If this ominous blade really had a real object, its demonic power was simply unimaginable. Ling Huju, if I don't kill you today, I am not a man. Roar! Just as Yixian's clone was about to form an association when he saw the monstrous demonic blade, Tuoba Linfeng, who was on the ground, raised his head and roared angrily after summoning the blood-green demonic blade. Then his body shot out, and in the blink of an eye, he soared into the air with the unparalleled blade that was circling endlessly. Can you be any more shameless? Seeing Tuoba Linfeng's incoherent expression, Yixian almost burst out laughing on the spot. He rolled his eyes and sneered. Although his figure didn't step out of the whole void shuttle, his voice was incomparably clear. With your current appearance, can you even be considered a person? Clearly, even ghosts would die again if they saw you. You'll be scared to death. Oh. Just as he finished speaking, the space below the ship seemed to respond. Once again, a mournful howl of a mad wolf sounded out. The corpse boss Tuoba Linfeng flew into a rage again, because Yixian had hit the nail on the head and casually mocked him. It just so happened to hit the deepest thorn in his heart. This time he was really going to go berserk from embarrassment. This was exactly what Yixian wanted to see. The reason why he ridiculed Tuoba Linfeng just now was to infuriate him. After all, this was a powerful corpse king at the 4th level of the Heavenly Passage realm. In his hand, there was even a supreme fierce blade that was slightly inferior to the quasi-starry sky treasure, the withered demon blood blade. Yixian wasn't sure if the 5 elements hodgepodge of the absolute annihilation killing formation would still be able to kill such an existence. He purposely messed up his mind in order to ensure that his killing move would be able to take advantage of his unprepared state of mind and kill him in one strike. The effect was obviously not bad. Yixian sneered, but he didn't continue to mock Tuoba Linfeng. He no longer paid attention to Tuoba Linfeng, took a deep breath and issued a new attack command to the system. Cancel the full-range indiscriminate attack mode. Precisely lock onto the target. The 3 corpse kings. The killing array's energy conversion has entered a fully loaded state. Concentrate all the energy, divide it into 3, lock onto the target and kill with full force. Now. The last sentence Yixian was almost roaring out. The next moment, those 5 pillars hanging in the void like pillars of heaven suddenly dimmed without warning. Then they immediately expanded, blooming with a blazing light that was far more intense than before. They turned into an incomparably solid energy light beam, and at the same time shot into the sky above the killing array, converging into a huge energy light ball. It was like an incomparably blazing star hanging high in the void, blooming with endless 5-colored divine light. Chapter 3287. Demonic Reincarnation O. Just as Yixian in the Dongshu shuttle sneered and issued an order to the system to change the attack mode of the Great Extermination killing array, the third howl of a mad wolf sounded. Tuoba Linfeng was the most powerful existence among the 3 zombie kings. His strength at the middle stage of the Grotto Heaven realm was indeed extraordinary. Although he was half a step later than Gong Yangji and Yuan Zhua at this moment, he arrived first. His entire body transformed into a streak of black lightning. In the blink of an eye, he had left Gong Ruizhi and Yuan Zhua behind him. Taking the lead, he soared into the sky. He was now less than 10,000 meters away from the Dongshu shuttle that was suspended in the sky. Thinking that he could immediately blow down the small private battleship above, and then find the hateful people in the cabin and kill them at will, Tuoba Linfeng's murderous aura skyrocketed again. The rolling corpse flame was almost materialized. It could be said that the demonic flame was shocking. Seeing this scene, even Yixian couldn't help but click his tongue in admiration. His face was filled with admiration. TSK, the corpse boss is indeed the corpse boss. Those who can be the leader are indeed different from the rest. Their explosive power is too shocking. I've never heard of anyone who dares to risk their lives like this before. That's right, in Yixian's view, Tuoba Linfeng, who suddenly exploded, was really just courting death. Because at the same time he said these words, the 5 killing array pillars hanging in the void just happened to shine brightly, and in a flash, the terrifying 5-colored light ball condensed in the central area above the killing array. All of this happened too quickly, too suddenly. Without waiting for Yixian to finish speaking, the 5-colored ball of light in the central region had already appeared. At this time, the third howl of a mad wolf from Tuoba Linfeng had yet to end, so he had no way of reacting at all then. The 5-colored light ball suddenly exploded and divided into 3. In an instant from the static suspension, it turned into 3 extremely fast-flowing arrows, with the momentum to destroy the heaven and earth, directly blasting down. In less than half an instant, the 3 corpse kings that were rushing over had already been bombarded from head to toe without any suspense. Boom! 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 3 terrifying explosions rang out almost at the same time, causing the earth to tremble slightly. A light curtain that was countless times brighter than the stars in the Ming Dynasty suddenly burst out, sweeping across a distance of hundreds of miles, instantly enveloping the entire area sealed by the killing formation. At this moment nothing could be seen. The only thing that could be seen was an incomparably dazzling five-colored light. Even Yi Xian, who was in the high-altitude void dimension shuttle, subconsciously closed his eyes. It was too glaring. Even if he wasn't at the scene and was only looking at it through the holographic virtual screen, he still couldn't do it. Even the eyes of a starry sky powerhouse would not be able to resist this level of blazing light. Fortunately, this light screen suddenly leaked out. It came suddenly and left even faster. When Yi Xian slightly closed his eyes and immediately opened them again, the dazzling light screen had already disappeared. As for the three corpse king brothers, they were most likely turned into ashes. Yi Xian spread out his divine sense and searched the surroundings several times, but found nothing. Not to mention the zombie kings, there wasn't even a single strand of corpse hair. On the vast land below that was trapped by the extermination killing formation, there were still a large number of cosmic zombies and broken limbs and rotten flesh, but now they were all gone. Although the blazing and terrifying screen of light only existed for a fleeting moment, and the time it existed was so short that it could be completely ignored, its might was too shocking. It was like the light of annihilation, and everything in an area of 50 kilometers was instantly obliterated. If it weren't for the killing formation runes on the surface of the void dimension shuttle flashing all the time, transmitting countless energy threads into a light net that maintained a synchronous connection with the 5 killing formation pillars hanging around the void, Yi Xian would have been in danger just now. This level of destructive light energy could probably even severely injure the 15th Realm Universe Master. No matter how high the grade of the Great Five Elements extermination formation was, it was impossible for it to have such terrifying power. Although it was very likely that it was because the killing formation had completely sealed this void, the endless light energy couldn't be released and was limited to a limited space, resulting in such a terrifying power. But Yi Xian was still a little uneasy. After thinking about it for a while, he couldn't figure it out. In the end, he could only shake his head with a wry smile and put it aside for the time being. It's a pity that those 3 corpse cores were lost. This kind of thing can only be found but not sought, but it was wiped out together. After muttering a few words of regret, Yi Xian immediately removed the killing formation and turned off the Void Dimension Shuttle's onboard killing formation system. Then he drove the Void Dimension Shuttle into the sky, passing through the high atmosphere and entering the void outside. After adjusting his direction, he instantly left. Although there were still 2 to 3 million cosmic zombies outside the area sealed by the killing formation that had not been eliminated, he didn't have the heart to care about this matter. The 3 zombie kings had been wiped out, and those ordinary cosmic zombies couldn't cause much trouble. Later there would be someone to clean up the mess. As for Yi Xian at this moment, he left in a hurry. His destination was Tianchan Planet, the capital of Tiancheng Country. The configuration of the level 10 liquid was imminent and couldn't be delayed any longer. Heaven Battle Planet. Somewhere less than 10,000 miles away from where Yi Xian used the Great Five Elements extermination formation to kill the zombie army. In a dark valley less than 10,000 miles away. Shoo! A faint sound of breaking air was clearly heard. Then from the depths of this dark valley, a huge blood-green heavenly blade cut through the void. After rushing out of the valley, it quickly stopped in mid-air in the distance. This was clearly the supreme demonic blade that was hanging above Tuoba Linfeng's head. Although the killing power was obscure and the demonic flames were restrained, the aura was exactly the same. There was no mistake. The demonic rebirth technique is really extraordinary. I didn't expect this time to be a blessing in disguise. Using this technique, I took the opportunity to get rid of that disgusting flesh bag. Like a soldier being reborn, the level of life evolved again, and I achieved the demonic body in one fell swoop. As Tuoba Linfeng's voice sounded, the 100-feet demonic blade hanging in midair suddenly squirmed and changed rapidly. In just 2 or 3 breaths it had turned into a human with flesh and blood. It was Tuoba Linfeng. What was even stranger was that his appearance was restored to the appearance before being eroded by the undying indestructible poison. There was no trace of the universe's zombies left. This feeling is wonderful. It's not a body of flesh and blood, nor is it an energy form. It's also not the primordial spirit that humans cultivate. It's as if it doesn't belong to this world. It can change between flesh and blood, energy form, and human primordial spirit at will. Looking down at the newly formed body of flesh and blood, Tuoba Linfeng's words revealed a strong sense of joy. As he spoke, the body of flesh and blood that he was looking at changed again, instantly turning into an illusory primordial spirit state. In less than 10 breaths, Tuoba Linfeng's form of existence had turned between the 3 different states of energy form, flesh and blood form, and consciousness primordial spirit, completely confirming the guess in his heart. In a great mood, Tuoba Linfeng in the primordial spirit state raised his head and laughed wildly. In a flash, he disappeared without a trace. Ha ha ha. Chapter 3288. Crownless Corpse Emperor Heaven Battle Planet. The vast hilly area where Yi Xian had activated the Dongshu shuttle's killing system and annihilated countless zombies. At this time, Yi Xian had been gone for half a day. The remaining 2 to 3 million zombies gradually recovered from their boundless fear and gathered one after another, quickly forming an army and continuing to advance into the distance. Tuoba Linfeng was mixed in with this leaderless zombie army, concealing his aura. Even his appearance had been deliberately changed. He looked no different from the densely packed ordinary universe zombies around him. The reason why he was able to survive this time was purely due to luck. Who would have thought that a human powerhouse with a cultivation base of Black Hole Realm would be able to activate such a terrifying killing array of heaven and earth? Not to mention the 3 Heavenly Passage Realm zombie kings. Even Void, Genesis, and Cosmic Ninth Order peak quasi-universe powerhouses would find it difficult to retreat unscathed under the crushing power of such a terrifying killing array. This battle had caused Tuoba Linfeng's temperament to change greatly. The past arrogance and impetuousness had completely disappeared. If he hadn't coincidentally obtained the demonic rebirth incantation a few days ago, he would have been obliterated in an instant like Gong Yangji and Yuan Zhua. He would have ceased to exist a long time ago. Every time he thought of this, Tuoba Linfeng's soul consciousness would instantly become incomparably clear and ethereal, just like how his original zombie body had completely transformed into the heavenly demon body he possessed today. Tuoba Linfeng felt that the level of his thoughts and consciousness had been completely elevated because of this. From the inside out, from the body to the soul, everything was like a new life, completely reborn. He was glad that he had not been defeated. Even if he had just experienced a life and death calamity not long ago, he had finally returned as a king. He could not easily give up on this zombie army. Although they were very weak now, as a former zombie king, Tuoba Linfeng knew better than anyone how terrifying these zombies were. As long as there was enough time and space, any universe zombie would eventually evolve to an extremely powerful level. Moreover, this kind of evolution speed was simply terrifying, far surpassing those so-called human race geniuses. The entire human race occupied the vast third universe, and its population was innumerable. There were countless administrative planets in the territories of the 2 camps, but how many so-called geniuses could be considered gifted on the path of cultivation or life-level evolution? However, the zombie race was different. Any zombie in the universe had the same evolutionary speed and potential as the human race. Tuoba Linfeng firmly believed that if he could gather an army of hundreds of millions of zombies, and lead them into the boundless starry sky, they would be able to fight for enough time and space to evolve. Then, when this zombie army fully matured, the entire human race of the third universe, including the Tianji clan of the first universe and the countless races of the Federation of the second universe without exception, would become the slaves of the zombie army. From then on, the 3 universes would be unified. The only supreme overlord was the zombie race. All of this was indeed very far away, but Tuoba Linfeng firmly believed, so he would never give up. However, after experiencing this life and death calamity, Tuoba Linfeng wouldn't reveal his identity as easily as before. Presumably, the news of the 3 zombie kings of the Heaven Battle Planet falling in battle would spread out very quickly. This was also his advantage. From today onwards, the entire zombie army would no longer have a so-called king. There would only be a single crownless emperor hidden in the dark, leading the entire zombie race towards glory step by step. With this kind of expectation, Tuoba Linfeng lay dormant within the zombie army. He did not reveal himself, but from time to time, he would quietly send out invisible biological waves unique to zombie kings. He carefully urged the entire army to slowly advance towards a certain city in front of him. The Heaven Battle Planet was incomparably vast, And there were still close to 70% of the human cities that had yet to be conquered. In every city, there were some human powerhouses and ordinary citizens. For Tuoba Linfeng, this was a very tempting super large cake. It would allow him to once again create a huge zombie army in the shortest amount of time. As a former zombie king, Tuoba Linfeng knew better than anyone that the larger the number of zombies in the universe, the higher the chances of mutated zombies with various special abilities appearing, and the shorter the time it would take. The Heaven Battle Planet was one of the 3 imperial capital planets of the dynasty. Its significance and value were too sensitive. All of these life and death calamities had enlightened Tuoba Linfeng. He was clearly aware of the impending crisis of destruction. This was not a place to stay for long. The amount of zombies he could bring with him would definitely not be that much. Tuoba Linfeng's choice was very simple, but also very cruel. He decided to artificially advance the evolution of the zombie race. First, he would expand the zombie army to the limit. Then, using the Zombie King's special biological waves, he would secretly influence the entire zombie army to kill and devour each other. And through this, they would rapidly evolve. It could be imagined that in the near future, as this cruel battle for survival unfolded, it was very likely that not even 1 out of 10,000 zombies would survive. Among the millions of zombies in the zombie army, perhaps only 100 would survive or even less. However, they were all elite zombies. They would also be the original force that Tuoba Linfeng would lead countless zombie armies in the future, moving unhindered across the universe. And all of this had to be completed before the human army arrived. Otherwise, except for Tuoba Linfeng himself, all the zombies on this huge planet would not be able to escape. They would definitely be completely annihilated. When he thought of this, at the end of the horizon in front of him, the tall walls of the target city finally appeared. Tuoba Linfeng's eyes flashed with a sharp light. His body immediately emitted a unique biological wave that was unique to zombie kings. In an instant it spread out, quietly affecting all the zombies in the entire army. Roar! Ayo! Screech! Soon, a series of bone-chilling roars and howls of the zombies rang out one after another. The entire zombie army of millions of zombies went berserk in just a few seconds. Their advancing speed instantly increased by dozens of times. Originally they were moving slowly, but now they were moving at extreme speed. This scene was too shocking. A huge army of millions of zombies instantly accelerated crazily. As far as the eye could see, they covered a large area.